Well, fuck it. Since I got a hot mic, what up, everybody? How's it going? How's it going? Happy, what is today? Monday? Hello. Happy Monday, everybody. What is up? I didn't realize that my mic was hot. I have a double mute. So I have a mute here, and then I have a mute somewhere else. And, yeah, I guess I had both of them disabled. Oh well. What is up, everybody? Hello. Happy Monday. How are we? Right, Joy-Con, what is up? Quicksilver, Flying Wookie, Slipfix, hello. Nightshade, dude, what's up, man? Big Papa Frump, hello as well. Oh, let me stand. Today is my first day back from Disney World vacation. Oh man, do you miss Disney? I don't know where I put my standing thing. Hold on. There it is. All right, hang on. What's up, though, everybody? Hello. Except not the crowds. That's fair. Hey, all, any tips on using Pulumi with AWS multi-factor auth? Yeah. So with MFA at Hippo, where I work, we just generate tokens every 60 minutes. I don't know if that's how you do it. But yeah, there's we have a page at Hippo called single sign-on for Amazon. And then it's got all of our accounts on it, so we can just click on an account, and then it'll generate me, I can click on a link, and then it'll show me credentials that I can copy and paste for 60 minutes. That's what I would recommend. Yeah, that's what I would recommend doing. It's annoying, but so there's another way around it too, Vimy Daddy, which is to use the AWS CLI. It has a login feature. The command line interface. And so what you could do with this as well, if you wanted to, make this a little higher. If you wanted to, you can log into your accounts via this CLI as well. You still have to do it, however often your tokens expire. But this is a way of doing it too, and it'll automatically update your profiles and stuff. That's not a bad option either, but you have to set up profiles to do it this way, so. I normally just do the environment variables because it's easier. What desk do I have? I have a, what is it called? I have a, autonomous. I have an autonomous L desk. Yeah, I have an autonomous L desk. We are doing the CLI way right now. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's really just either the CLI way or copying and pasting the environment variables, I think. Unfortunately, that is what it is. Do I like it? Oh yeah, I love my standing desk. It's big. It's a big desk. So I know you can't see it fully, but if I go BR. You can kind of see how my arm is fully out and I'm wiping it across the whole desk because it's a big desk. It's a big desk. It's nice. Yeah, I needed an L desk though, so yeah. All right. And Steffi, by the way, I don't know if I said hi to you, but thanks for making me stand. I appreciate it. Flying Wookie, hello as well. All right, so guys, check it out. We are going to hop back into the Knicks of things. And I want to preface this by saying that I was actually able to use Nix over the weekend to solve something for LSP containers, and I wanted to show it to you because I felt like this was a good example of actually, like, hands down, Nix is probably a better solution for this problem than, you know, Docker or anything else. And I'll show you both. So here's the scenario, right? Let's do this. Let's go to Lucid really quickly. And let's talk a moment about how we develop LSP containers, okay? Let's talk for a minute on how we develop LSP containers. So when we talk about how we develop it right now, it's really just, you know, a bunch of nerds working on a repository together and writing Lua code, right? So we have like one main init Lua file here, and this is honestly the whole plugin. The whole plugin is 206 lines of code. It's really not a lot, but what it does is pretty cool. Yo, Adam.dev, what is up, man? Hello. Dude, I just got started. Thank you so much for the raid. Shout out to Adam.dev. How are you, my dude? Hello. There we go, if I could spell your name right. We gotta do both of the shout outs because, yeah, there's two of them now. There you go. We'll see if ours actually works. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it's a cold start. But hello, dude. How are you? Welcome to the stream. I hope you are good. How was your stream, man? What were you up to? What a coincidence. Early today, I got your Discord recommended, and now I'm here, dude. It was fate. It was fate. You were meant to be amongst nerds like us. Welcome. Cal.js. Hello. Do you use Firefox containers or separate sessions? Only recently discovered this. I just use Firefox. So I might be missing something here. But yeah, Adam.dev, thank you for the raid, man. Thank you. So good. I feel like I can never catch you live. Well, hey, you got me. Yeah, no, I normally stream around between 8 a.m. and 9 or 10 a.m. Monday. Excuse me. Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. That's pretty much all the times I schedule. So yeah, if you don't catch us during those times, yeah, I have such a friggin' ridiculously busy life. I wish I had more time to stream. But thank you for being here, and thank you for the raid, man. What were you doing? What were you up to? And how are you and your wonderful community? Still on LSP containers? Still? What are you saying? Still? What do you mean? What do you mean still? What's up, Creative? How's it going, buddy? Stable Diffusion and Dream Booth. Man, technology names are crazy. I genuinely so here's the thing, right? I'm gonna take what you just told me and I'm gonna think about, don't tell me what they are. I'm gonna try and decipher what it is. So we have Stable Diffusion. I mean, that's kind of an oxymoron because like stable diffusion is not really stable, but okay, fair enough. It is what it is. I'm going to guess maybe something with graphics or lights of some sort. I don't know. And Dream Booth, dog. You might as well call it Flibbity Floor, but I have no idea what that could be. Dream Booth. I don't know. I have no idea what Dream Booth could be. It's a booth you dream in. I have no idea. Yo, Adam, thank you for the tier 1 sub, man. Thank you. You did not have to do that. Thank you, buddy. Thank you. Yeah, check it out sometime. In Firefox, you can have each tab, for example, logged in separate session for any website, so much easier than logging out as different users. Oh, how do you do that? Is that like a move tab, send a device, share, select? I mean, I only see like basic tab settings. I don't see like containerize my tab. How do you do that? What has crazier names, npm packages or red teaming tools? I mean, there's definitely some ridiculous npm package names, that's for sure. The Nix stuff in LSP containers looks cool. I'm just about to go over that. Yeah, I'm gonna go over that in just a second. What I did. Damn, that's close enough. Really? It's like Dolly. Are you familiar with that? Oh, damn, I was close. Yeah, I know what Dolly is. Yeah, you're talking about the AI generation art stuff. Yes, I know what you're talking about. You were messing with that. Gotcha. I think I'm on the, I don't even know if I got invited to it. I know I like added myself to the list, but I don't know. I feel like if I started messing with that stuff, I'd just get lost in it and like try to determine human existentialism and just end up in a deep depression or something. I don't know, man. that kind of stuff can mess with my mind. That's really weird because I had a thought about a Jackbox style game where you guess the purpose of some wild piece of text name. That's cool. I mean, CodeSpet doesn't. I think Chris has got like a NPM search or something like that. I can't remember Chris Griffin, CM Griffin, but he's got something like that. Yo, what's up, Rocky? How's it going? We got very lost and it's still recovering. Nice. Is it just something where you're like putting in prompts, or are you like actually? I mean, again, I'm not fully sure. Is it like, just prompts? Are you programming things and generating stuff? Like what is the experience, I guess? Are you a software engineer? No, I'm not. I'm a poser. I wish I was. One day I hope to be. No, I am. I've been doing this for 10 years, so it's literally the only thing I know. With Dream Booth trying to create stylized portraits of athletes for StatMuse. Stylized portraits of athletes. Interesting. That's so see that I remember talking to, I can't remember who I talked to, but actually I think it was Atoda. Atoda and I were talking about it, and we were basically just on the subject of like, is it truly creative? Is it just not really advanced generation, which it is. That's all it really is. It's just very advanced generation. Is it truly art? And I don't want to say it's not truly art, because it definitely is artistic. But it's definitely interesting where all of that lies. And like, I don't know. I find it fascinating, the kind of stuff it can generate. I definitely do. Holy crap. Back-to-back raids. Yo, Purple Elf. Hello. Shout out to Purple Elf. Hello. Hi. How are you? Thank you. Yes, thank you for the shout out. Let me do the new shout out too, just because like it actually makes it easier for people to follow, because then we could just do that. Look at that. Twitch making user experience is fun. Who would have thought it? Yo, Purple Elf. Hello. Thank you for the raid. I'm good. Yeah, no, I'm good. We just got raided by Adam.dev as well. So yeah, I'm just kind of, I just started streaming, to be honest with you, and I got hit with back-to-back raids. So I'm a little, I don't know. How was your stream? How are you? How is everything? What were you working on, Purple Elf? Hello. Welcome everybody as well from Purple Elf stream. How are you guys? Nice. I really want to get into the field, but wondering if it's the field for me. Thinking of taking a coding boot camp. Engineering in general, software engineering, I think is something, if you really love problem solving, I think is a really good start of why you might want to get into engineering and programming, because that's all it is. Like all of us do is just solve problems all day, and those problems are hopefully getting us closer to our goals, right? Some may, some not so much. But yeah, if you really enjoy problem solving, yeah, you might really like engineering. If you like building things, I love building things. Ever since I was a little kid playing with like Legos, you know what I mean? I just always loved building stuff. So that was another thing that played really heavily into me. I think as you get older, like I said, I've been doing this for a while. The technology kind of fades away, right? Like you can stay in the hype of like talking about all the tech, and I try to, because I love learning about new tech, but like I have really become more fascinated with like looking at a problem and being like, how can I solve this problem the best way for the, circumstances? And sometimes that means I don't get to use the tech I want to use, you know what I mean? Or sometimes it does. But for example, every time, it's such a rewarding feeling when you finish it. So, there's things like that too. I think you find what you love about it, but there's a lot of love. There's a lot to love, about it. Stream was great. I'm great. Everything is great. Nice. I'm glad to hear that. That is great. I was working on an SPA refactor and killing legacy code. Nice. Very cool. What is your SPA written in, if you don't mind me asking, and what is the app, if you don't mind me asking? You could try out some of the free courses on Code Academy and just see if it grabs you. Boot camps are pricey. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Again, horse sounds. I think boot camps are good when they are as impactless as possible on you. You know what I mean? If they're not in a scenario where it's like, oh, I want to, spend a ton of money and potentially put in like 10% of my next job's, salary or something. Like, no, don't do that, But if it's like, hey, I'm going to do this in my off time, when I've got free time, I can do it myself. Those are probably good. Yeah, those are probably good. I've just seen a lot of people spend a lot of money on boot camps and essentially walk away with this, which is like a glorified Udemy tutorial, and you're just kind of like, ooh, feel bad on that one. So just be careful with those. Don't make sure it's something you really want to do, I guess, with regards to going to a boot camp. That's all. There's a lot you can learn for free. Programming is just like an endless, amazing puzzle. It is. I agree. That's one of my favorite parts about it. We solve problems. I thought we were creating them. Well, it depends on, I guess I should say we hope to solve problems, but some of us do create problems for others. We get there, you know what I mean? Eventually, hopefully, we're all solving problems. The newest tech is not always the right one for the job. It's true, and more often than not, it is not the rightest option for the job. Normally in about 2 years after the tech has been out, tested, and somehow Google has recommended it as something they should use, then people start using it. Sorry, shots fired at the tech industry. LSP containers basically runs your servers inside Docker, so you don't have to install them on your server. Yes, exactly. Yeah, we'll go over LSP containers in just a second because I know we just got raided. It's a flexible working tool that was prototyped in SSR Ruby and now migrating to React SPI. Nice! Oh, dude, Ruby, the good old days. Not to say Ruby isn't something still viable. I know Ruby's used in a lot of places. I just haven't used it personally in such a while. There are times where I look at Ruby and I'm just like, just kind of want to jump in. But then I don't. Yeah. Okay, I really got to go feed the beast now. Hope you have an awesome rest of your day. Yo, Purple Elf, thank you so much for the raid. Thank you. Have a good rest of your day. Enjoy yourself and get some food. Totally understand whether the beast be you or, I don't know, your pet or something. Whoever needs nourishment, I hope they enjoy it. And thank you. And Adam.dev, yo, thank you for the raid too, man. Thank you. I hope if you're still there, you are, at least getting some food or chilling out as well after your stream. Thank you guys. Seriously. Now that I've got like all of you wonderful faces, so hanging out here, should we just like start the stream over? Here you go, chat. Let's start the stream over. You ready? We're going to start the stream over. I just wanted to show you the intro because I like it and I think it's funny. Hi, I'm BG. Welcome. Basically, what everyone who went through a raid just missed was me introducing myself. I'm BG. I'm one of the co-hosts of the Alta 4 stream. If you guys don't know us, be sure to check out that little blurb right there. We are a co-hosted channel. If you've ever, heard of us, you might know that we are a co-hosted channel. Basically, during the weeks, you can hang out with me Monday through Friday. Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays normally between like 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. I start. And I work in DevOps. I'm a senior software engineer. I've been doing this for a little while, and I like to work on a lot of different things. And we build a lot of different things here. For example, Phil, thank you for the 2 months, man. And you just proved a little, or you just kind of not proved, but you showed off a little bit of what we do, which is we build tools for things that we use. We have something here called Quirk. Quirk is really what powers a lot of our stream. Whether it be our lights changing, our bot responding, it also does Discord moderation, a lot of other things, sending out notifications for us and stuff like that. We build that on stream. We are also going to be talking about something today, which is we also work on open source stuff. So like I said, I have a lot of different interests. I like building things that, are kind of like enterprisey and like something I could eventually, maybe make as a product one day. I like making open source stuff and things I can, give back to the community, and things I can share, right? So with the open source side of things, I'm a big Neovim fan. I use Neovim. I've used Neovim for 3 years now, I guess, for quite some time. And when I first started getting into Neovim, I like a lot of people, it's like, man, it'd be cool to make a plugin, you know what I mean? Just to kind of like learn how the editor works and how everything is, how everything functions, while at the same time, maybe being able to contribute back to the community in some way. And so after doing a little bit of digging and thinking and kind of like, looking at what problems I could solve, one of the problems I could solve, I thought, was basically language servers, around language servers. So if you guys don't know how Neovim works or how language servers work in general, TLDR, we all use language servers. Well, most of us do. I wouldn't say all of us. Most of us do. If you're in VS Code, you're definitely using a language server. If you're in Neovim or Vim, you might be. You might be one of those god tier programmers who, has every function and class indexed in your brain, and you don't have to, need things like, auto or what's it called? Syntax correct, or no, what is it called? Auto completion and stuff like that. However, I do. And so if you want those types of really nice features in your editor, you normally rely on what's called a language server. The TLDR is every language you use, or most languages out there have a language server, which is some type of process that runs in the background and basically checks your code, checks your work, and says like, okay, based off of what we know and how we standardize our code and what we know to error and whatnot, these are things you should be aware of. And that's why often in editors you'll get the squigglies, right? The little red squigglies we all love to see. That's normally coming from a language server of some sort. So when you're working with VS Code, right? This is completely behind the scene. You know what I mean? You don't think about your language servers being installed. You don't even think about them being ran. You really just, they just kind of all get installed with the plugin and stuff like that. However, when you're working with different other types of editors, whether it be, again, Vim, Neovim, Emacs, even stuff like that, you have to solve that problem. You have to say like, okay, like I actually need to make sure my language server's on my computer. And like I said, this is a process that just runs in the background, right? And VS Code does install that process for you. So in a Neovim scenario, if I was like, well, hey, I want to be able to have language servers and stuff, the first way you would do it is just be like, all right, well, I need, I want the Rust analyzer, right? How do I do that? Cool. So I go here, and then I go quick start, and then, we go to the install, and then we say, okay, cool. This is how we, VS Code. Okay. And then you'd be like, Vim, right? Neovim, Vim. And you can see here that you prerequisites. You have installed the Rust analyzer binary. And this is like the biggest common problem that happens once you start working with Neovim and language servers that a lot of people start noticing is like all of these binaries and things that are required for you to like have a decent developer experience, you have to install yourself. So I'd have to be like, all right, well, let's go grab the Rust Analyzer binary. We'll go to the releases page. We download it, right? And then follow these steps to like install it, right? And so bam, bam, boom. There you go. Now you've got a Rust Analyzer. Now, so Cal, before we jump forward there, I'm just saying if you're just getting started, you don't know how any of this stuff works. Like I'm just saying you have no pre-existing knowledge of Neovim, right? And you want language servers, and you know that you need to set up LSP config, right? Like, that. You're like, all right, well, I'm going to use LSP config or, COC or something like that. Although I think COC does do some of this for you. So yeah, this is just like bare bones, right? This is just bare bones. But there are solutions out there. And so that's the next step you'd probably take. You'd probably be like, oh man, like, I want to install all these different, I work with Rust and Go and JavaScript and TypeScript and, Elixir, and blah, 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 right? Like, you're like, that's at least like 7 language servers. Like, okay, crap. How can I do this a little bit easier, right? And in the future, how can I do this so that it's, also as easy where I'm like, oh, snoot. Oh, shoot. I need this one language server I don't have. Let's go ahead and install it. And so that's where like LSP install comes into play. Where like these are plugins, right? Goodness gracious, dude. Okay, listen, I love you all so much. I've missed you all, Coding Garden. We love you. I've gotten hit with 3 raids today, bro. I haven't even been able to start streaming. Goodness. Hi, everyone. So good to see you. I'm just kidding. I love you, Coding Garden. How are you, buddy? Hello. Thank you so much for the raid, dude. I think I've done that to you quite often as well, which is, I think last time I raided you, Coding Garden was streaming. Or last time I raided Coding Garden, he was streaming, and he was in the middle of like a focus mode. And I hit him with a big raid right during that focus mode. I was like, oh, sorry. It's all good. I'm just teasing. Hello, everybody. Hi. How are you? Welcome, everybody, from Coding Garden Stream. Again, shout out to Coding Garden Stream. If you guys do not know this wonderful soul, you definitely should check them out. They are incredibly brilliant. Work on a lot of really cool things that I think you guys could learn from. So go check them out. Let me see. Coding. And honestly, just a really great community, too. There we go. Let me catch up with chat. Yeah, we literally got a triple raid. Again, just crazy. Today's crazy. Thank you, guys. Seriously, thank you. There you go. There's both of our shout-outs. Let me catch up with chat. COC automates that a lot. LSP. Yes, you're right. Yo, what's up, Cesar? How's it going? Mark, hello. Neon, hello. Hello, did an IRL stream, so can't stay. Have a good one. Oh, nice, man. Well, I hope the IRL stream went well. I hope you guys got to enjoy the IRL stream. That sounds fun. I'm gonna have to go back and check the VOD. I always love it when I get to see my friends do IRL streams and stuff, because we basically, like, you just see this. You know what I mean? You just see, like, this really awesomely boring room and other things. So, like, when you get to see the environment, it's really cool. So yeah, Coding Garden, dude, thank you so much for the raid. Again, go check out all of the people who have raided us today. Adam.dev, Purple Elf, and Coding Garden. Guys, thank you. Seriously, we're not worthy, man. We're not worthy. If you guys are just tuning in, you're just getting here, thank you. To give you a little bit of a breakdown of what we're talking about, just to super catch you up really quickly. I'm not going to restart the stream again because I just did that. However, I am working in something called LSP Containers. We work on a lot of different projects here. My name is BG, by the way. I am one of the co-hosts of the Alta 4 stream. So if you're new, there you go. And so today I'm working on an open source project that I've developed. It's actually a plugin for Neovim. And it's called LSP Containers. If you guys have ever used like VS Code or anything like that, this is a problem you guys don't even think about. It's all done in the back end, but the TLDRs is when you're working with languages, right? Go, JavaScript, whatever. These normally come paired with language servers, right? These are basically the editor checkers for us that say like, okay, what you just wrote is bad. It's going to break stuff. Maybe don't save that. And that's where you get the little red squiggly lines. In a yo, what's up, Nate? How's it going, buddy? Hello. Big Lacana as well. Hello. Happy Monday though. How are you? And yeah, it's so in a normal, scenario, if you're like, all right, I want to develop with Rust, right? And VS Code, VS Code then downloads and installs the Rust analyzer for you. I use Neovim. I use Vim, and that's not a flex. It's just a preference. And so, another I'm just not gonna. I don't know if you meant that to be offensive or not, so I'm just not gonna let that one slide, but that was interesting. I use Neovim, by the way, or do you? Oh, no, okay, all right, if you did not, then I will let that slide. Okay, there you go. All right, I was like slightly confused on if you meant that as an offensive thing or not. We have to be careful, man. Sometimes people like take the whole Vim thing way too seriously, and I'm just like, homie, that's not what you're getting paid for. So anyways, yeah, like I said, I use Vim. I've used Neovim for quite some time. Gotcha. And so, long story short, if you use Vim or Neovim or Emacs, whatever you choose, right? Whatever your poison. When it's in the terminal, it normally probably requires you to have some type of language server installed for it manually. Like I said, in VS Code and other editors, this problem's already solved for. But in Neovim, it's not. And so, as I was just starting to go through before you wonderful people got here from Coding Garden stream, I was explaining kind of what the current process is when you're a developer just starting with Neovim, where you're like, all right, well, I know I need to set up my editor, I know I need to get my language server set up, and I know I need to install my language server, and these are all kind of like separate steps you have to take, right? Like you have to configure your init.vim or init.lua to, get your language server set up. And then you actually have to, go somewhere else to download the language server and install it. And so, in the sense of Rust, if you're trying to work with Rust, if you're just, again, brand new, don't really have any understanding or anything like that, you would probably find yourself in a scenario where after installing Neovim, right, and you're working with your your Neovim configuration, you'd probably be like, oh, okay, I need to, I want Rust Analyzer. I need to download and install Rust Analyzer, right? And then you start thinking about that for all the other language servers that you probably need, right? Go, JavaScript, again, Rust, I don't know, Docker. Like there's tons of language servers out there. And so then that's where you go like, all right, well, this isn't really going to work well. I need a more automated way of doing this. And so right before you guys got here, I was looking for LSP install and other things. Now, this one has been deprecated. You can see it's been archived, but the idea here is pretty much the same, where you can essentially go out and find plugins that will run scripts to install the language servers for you and manage them for you, which is very similar to how VS Code does it in some regards, right? And so what'll happen is in this scenario, you'll have your what's it called? You'll have your, configuration, and that's going to be in your init.lua. And then you'll have your installer, which is a plugin that you have something completely separate. Okay, just to be clear, if it's Mason, that's fine. This is just an example, guys. I am just making it here. Let me click on it just so we could stop talking about Mason and that it is the new future from LSP installer. Okay, I'm sorry, I clicked the wrong link. All I'm trying to say is that you more than likely have some type of configuration in Lua, and then you have some type of plugin somewhere that's going to handle that separate part for you. And again, Mason, sure, whatever. It might be Mason. So what I wanted to solve was the installer part, right? It was not the configuration part, mostly because the configuration part is really opinionated, right? Like I have my own init.lua with my own configurations. And like, if you're interested in my dot files, for example, you can do ! dot files in chat, bam, bam, boom, there's my dot files, right? And so like I have my own LSP configs and stuff like that I set up, but installing the language server and getting all that set up, that's pretty much identical almost anywhere. So when I was trying to figure out how to solve this problem, right? The first thing I did just for funsies is I actually went to the LSP config, repository. Now, this is probably something that you guys ask yourselves a lot too, of like, how can I find a project or something I can work with, or get like, I want to find something to work on. How can I find that, I guess? And I was in this scenario. I was like, well, I want to make some type of plugin, but like, I don't know. And to be honest with you, I had no idea how to make containerization work with Neovim. Like I had no idea how that actually worked. And so I was like, all right, well, I have no idea on any of this. So let's try and figure this out. A reverse engineered solution with a sprinkle of innovation. Yeah, literally, pretty much. Like literally, it's a good way of putting it. And so I was like, man, like I'd love to figure out some way of doing this to where it makes sense. Well, it's already done, Chemo. The plugin already exists, but I appreciate that. Thank you. And so, yeah, basically around that time, I was like, man, how could I figure out how to do this? And so I started doing research. I was like, is this possible? Is this something I could do? And sure enough, I was able to find in the wiki in NVim LSP config, a little article here saying running language servers in containers. And this one page, this one wiki page is what inspired LSP containers entirely. Because somebody showed, now I'm gonna be fair, like all of this was not here before. It was really just like this section here. But somebody showed an example with CLangD, and I was able to take that and be like, oh, okay, cool. Let me go ahead and run with that. And so, yeah, that's basically how LSP containers got started. And so from there, I created, the LSP containers init.lua, or the LSP containers, Lua plugin file thingy, right? And the project has existed since. Can you run LSPs in the cloud? So, I mean, I don't know. I guess theoretically you could, but it would not be easy. Yeah, I don't really, and like, to be fair, you probably wouldn't want to, most off of like some of the stuff I'm going to talk about in a minute, and like how Nix is involved with this and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, I guess I mean, to be honest with you, you do whatever your heart desires, man. Like, you go crazy, you just go crazy, try everything. But it would definitely make things slower. Yeah, exactly. It's kind of a could versus should scenario there for sure. 100%. So again, I wanted to share with you guys, one, how I kickstarted a project that I wanted to make, which was, hey, I wanted to make a, somewhat possibly helpful plugin, right, for Neovim. What was that mental process for me? And again, it really was like me looking at like the problems that I didn't like dealing with, which was, again, I dealt with this 2 years ago, right? So LSP containers has been around for at least a year now, I think. So like, I dealt with this a while ago. Mason didn't exist. LSP install was the only thing that existed at the time. So sorry if I'm not up to date on the installer plugins of the Neovim ecosphere, but that's because I solved this problem quite some time ago with LSP containers. And so, yeah, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah. So, oh, yeah. So here's LSP containers, and I'll show it to you basically how it works. And this might help you understand, like, if I want to run it in the cloud or not. And it'll probably help a lot, actually, because, again, this is a could versus should thing. So when you start Neovim, right, you open up some type of source code, right? This is a TypeScript file, a Rust file, whatever file, right? And when you do that, right, you're going to have some type of extension that's going to manage the language servers for those files, right? And so, for example, if we go to LSP config, by the way, somebody asked me if I've worked with any of the like native stuff. I have not yet. No, I've still only worked with LSP config. But if you go to LSP config, and then we go to like configs here, right? You're going to see that if you scroll down, like I'll just click on one of them, Terraform, right? You're going to see here that it has some file types. This file types is an actual file type that you have to open for it to then go, oh, this is a Terraform file. So if you just create a blank file, right, by default, without any extension, it might not know what it is. It sometimes does, but it might not know what it is until you actually add that extension. And so once you have opened a file with a detectable extension, and that plugin or that extension here, let's just do this, plugins, that plugin recognizes it, then it's going to fire a language server client, right? Now, if you think of like an HTTP client, it's literally the same thing, except for it's for language servers, right? It's a client that is used to interact with some type of remote service and interface data between the two. So when we say like, could you host it elsewhere? Sure. However, I want you to notice the line here, the attached line. What essentially happens is when the language server is started, standard out is opened and attached to with the client, because that's how it sends data directly to and from the server. So just in that sense, sending standard out data over the internet would not really be very possible, or if you did, it would not be fun. So that's probably one reason why you wouldn't want to do it. Another thing is that data then also reads things on the file system, right? So the language server actually reads your code. And some language servers, for example, will send up contextual blocks of data, right? Which is really neat. So basically, as you scroll through the code, it sends up those contextual blocks to check them, and then it will validate them for you. However, there are other language servers that just like read your whole code base and then give you, workspace data, or I'm sorry, workspace diagnostics and stuff based off of that. They don't all work the same. And that's something that's also very, very important, that even something like Mason, mason.nvim probably deals with too, which is like, not all of them work the same. Some of them are like a node module. Some of them are actual binaries. Like there's a lot of differences in the language servers that exist out there. And so we've discovered that too with working with LSP containers. But again, once you open up that file and that language server is then attached, there's a constant connection and data, transfer between the language server and the client, right? In a normal scenario, this just starts a process, right? So this would be language server client starts Rust analyzer, and that's a process that exists on your computer. What we do, right? And here's the key difference in what we do compared to like what Mason and all these other things do is we simply wrap the process that the language server client wants to start with Docker. That's it, right? That's why this plugin can really only be like, or only is really like 206 lines of code. Because what we do is we inherit the command that the language server client would run, and then we wrap it in Docker and then like give it, additional things if we need to, like volumes or working directories and stuff like that. So what happens, right, is if you were a completely fresh Neovim user, right, and you opened up after configuring your language server, right? So you just go to the configuration side and you say like, all right, here's my language server configuration. Here's my LSP containers, configuration with that, right? And then you go to open up a Rust file. What's going to happen is the language server client is going to fire off a Docker container. And what happens, chat, when you don't have an image on your computer, but you start a Docker container? What happens? Can anyone give me can anyone tell me what happens when you start a container, but you don't have that image on your computer? The FBI shows up. Yeah, exactly. It will build. Sure, it could build if it needs to. But yeah, the TLDR is that it will download it, right? It will pull it, or it will try and grab that image. Now, all of our LSP containers, as you might notice here, if we zoom in, are actually hosted on Docker Hub, right? So for us, our developer experience is you set up your configuration in your init Lua or your init.vim, right? And then you just go open up a file. Because the configuration knows how to run Docker now, when you go to open up a file, it will say, oh, okay, cool. Well, I noticed that you want to open up a TypeScript file. Well, I'm going to go get the TS server image, right, from Docker.io, LSP containers, TypeScript server. It's going to download it. And here's the best part, too. While it does that, it just waits, right? So there is a short period of time, potentially, depending on how big the image is and stuff like that, where your language server might not be responsive on that first pull, right? But because it's a Docker image and it'll be there again the next time you open it, every other time you open your editor, it'll start the container essentially instantly. And so, yeah, that's essentially how this works. We say, okay, well, if you're opening up a TypeScript file, right, our plugin, LSP containers, works with LSP config, that when that language server is started, that command is actually a command in a container, and then we attach that container to the language server client and not the actual process itself. So again, if you need something like Tailwind or Svelte or SolarGraph, Rust, all of these ones that we currently support, and even ones that we're adding support for, there's no install, right? Here's another thing that's super nice, right? We build nightly. We build our images nightly. So what'll happen is every night we go out, we download the latest types, or the language server, the latest language server, and then we rebuild it. So two things. One, if you wanted to make sure you had the latest version, what do you do, Chet? Can anyone guess, if you wanted to make sure you had the latest version of a language server with LSP containers, what might you need to do? Because it's very simple. It's actually very, very simple. Not run the, well, so you have to do something before you run the container again. Do you support R? Not yet, but I mean, if it has a language, basically if it has a language server, we can support it, yeah. Run container, so again, running the container again is part of it, but it's not the thing first. Docker pull, you could Docker pull, right? Or you could just remove the image, right? So if you essentially were like, you know what, I want to make sure that every time I start the, like, next time I start my editor, I get the latest version of stuff, you just do Docker image prune. Boop. Look, there's my LSP containers. Go, Tailwind, Rust. Now, the next time I run, the new ones are going to get pulled, right? And so that's what's really, really nice about this experience is you don't have to install, like, you don't have to be, like, you don't have to think about, oh, I have to reinstall a new version. You just delete the images, and then the next time you run, you get those new images or those new versions, right? Does this add additional latency? I assume it's negligible. So there's two things about the latency. Most of it is negligible. As you might notice, though, I deleted 4 images, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I cleared 2.69 gigs. So that should tell you some of these images are not small. It's true, and this is kind of the thing that sucks right now about it. And I'm trying to work with our images to make them smaller, but there are some, not all, there are some language servers that are very beefy. The Rust analyzer is like 1.4 gigs. And so that takes a second to download, right? GoPLS is another one. However, what's funny about Rust Analyzer and GoPLS, they also are like the beefiest when it comes to tooling. Like GoPLS comes with like a formatter. It comes with like a linting tool. It comes with a bunch of other things. I don't know if it's a lint. Actually, is it? I think it might be a linting. Yeah, so I can't remember. But like GoPLS comes with like a bunch of different added features. Rust Analyzer. Yeah, unfortunately, the Rust tool chain is like 600 megabytes, and then Analyzer itself's like a few hundred as well, so it pops it up. It gets a now again, here's the nice thing, and I will say this, chat, we made it so that in LSP containers, what you can do is you can do LSP shoot, hold on, let me just do an I'm gonna spoil something really quickly. Nix run. Just don't pay attention to what I'm doing right now, chat, okay? just disregard to what I'm paying attention to right now. There we go. So if I do LSP images pull, what'll happen is it'll look at my configuration, and if there are any images related to it that it can pull, it'll pull it down. As a matter of fact, LSP images remove will also make sure that any images that I have in my system will also remove. So we've tried to build into the user experience, like look at this, it's right next to the LSP stuff, right? So LSP info, LSP log, restart, start, stop, images pull, images remove, right? And that's kind of what I, like, when I added that was kind of the idea was, okay, like, these are going to get to be very big images, and we probably don't want people, like, messing around with all these different, like, we want probably something a bit simpler. And so yeah, we've built in things like that to kind of make this a little easier. And so yeah, if you want to just like pull all of the images at once, make sure you have the latest, then it'll do that and you'll be good to go. So that is LSP containers. And again, this is a project that we've had for a while now. I've been working on for a while. Here's the fun part, okay? Here's the fun part, chat. You guys know when you get really excited about a piece of tech or something you build, and you build it and you use it and you work with it for a while, and then you find a piece of tech that kind of solves that problem for you way better, and then you go like, damn. And then you forget about that thing that you were building because that new thing has really solved that problem for you. And so, yeah. So long story short, after I got to a point with the community where this plugin was working pretty well and working, decently, I was humbled and glorified by the wonders of Nix. And I didn't need containers anymore because I had Nix. And so, there was no need for me to containerize, language servers. That's fine. That's fine, Kenzo Dev. Good to see you, buddy. But yeah, no, the TLDRs is when I really started, looking at Nix and seeing like what kind of problems it could solve for me. It really did. It solved a lot of those things, at least with regards to my development experience. Like, I have a reproducible development experience that I can have anywhere. You know what I mean? And Docker kind of does that, but not really. So what happened was after I used Nix for a while, and again, if you guys don't know, I have my dot files here, right? I was like, well, man. And so I stopped maintaining it. And, our community was really taking the reins on it. But I would say when I kind of let go of the reins on the project and kind of just started merging requests more and not really being like, this is not really what we want, or thinking more about the design, it did start impacting the actual, like quality of the project. And so about a month or two ago, about a month ago, I was like, you know what, I really need to jump back into this, and I need to figure out how I can, basically work on LSP containers, even though I don't technically use it myself anymore, right? What LSP manager do you use now? I literally just use Nix, and I'll explain it to you in a second. Got Nix pilled this morning, set up my dev environment, and I'm really loving it so far. Dude, I'm telling you, don't worry, chat. I'm trying to bring the Nix wave to our community and to our little place of Twitch. I think you guys are really going to love it. I do have one YouTube video out right now on how to use Nix with Flakes. If you watch that video, and don't worry, I'll demo Nix for you in a second. But if you watch that video, that'll also show you and give you a good idea on what the development experience is with Nix. And gives you a bit of idea of really what I'm about to show you as well. So, like, honestly, what I'm about to demo for you pretty much is already in that video. Cool. So yeah. And again, I'm not going to go super down the Nix road just yet. But again, I just wanted to help you guys understanding of why I kind of took a step away from LSP containers. So like I said, I do love this project. It is something I want to keep growing and evolving. And because like I said, there's also a lot of people who just don't use Nix, and that's fine. That's totally fine. As a matter of fact, if you don't use Nix, I think LSP containers is probably one of the better solutions for managing your language servers. And I don't mean to be biased there. But when I got into, again, being on Nix, like this is Nix, guys. Like I'm demoing it for you right now. This is Nix OS. But when I started using Nix OS, like I said, I really started leaning on its features more. Now, I don't know anyone not using Nix. I don't know if that's true. I mean, a lot of people. I would be surprised how many people actually do use Nix in this chat that like use it daily. It's hard to use it daily in your development workflow. It really is. Unless you're like fully, like, I think I tried Nixifying one of our projects at Hippo, and like it just worked there and like nothing else worked. And I was like, okay, that's not going to do anything. If you don't use Nix, are you even a programmer? I mean, that's fair. That's fair. Is Nix very niche in DevOps? Nix is just very niche in general. Okay. Now, as I said, we are going to be jumping into Nix pills today, and we are back into Nix pills today, and we are actually going to be talking about the basics of the language. Before I do that, let me quickly explain to you all what Nix is, because I'm going to be releasing a video on YouTube about it very shortly. Okay, so let's see if I can do this right. This is basically what's in the video. All right, ready? Here we go, chat. Okay, so there's a lot of things that we use out in the world today to try and like build stuff, right? Package stuff and move stuff around. The main point of all of that is that we're trying to solve a problem of focusing on taking our software, building it, and then putting it somewhere, right? We're not talking about actually deploying it. We're just talking about the packaging process, the building process, and all of that. Today, in a lot of normal places, right, we use something like Docker, right? Docker is very commonly used as, putting a Docker file in a project. You then run that Docker build and you get an image out of it, right? And then that is your artifact, right? The thing about Docker, however, is that Docker is not technically reproducible. It is repeatable, right? But it is not reproducible. When we talk about the difference between repeatability and reproducibility, there's actually a massive difference, which is one always gives you the exact same artifact, whereas another one will just run steps over and over and over again. As a matter of fact, when you compare Ansible to Docker, their repeatability is much more common than something like Nix and like a package.json file or something like that, right? And when we try and compare those two, the big difference is that with something like Ansible or Docker, you're literally writing steps, right? So you're saying, run this command, then run this command, and do this and do this and do that. But you don't have any way of checksumming if that command is going to give you the same output every time. You don't have a way of always checksumming to know if, the packages you're downloading are the same, that they're coming from the right location or other things like that. That is what makes Docker repeatable. Now, if Docker stepped in and said like, hey, we're going to create a lock file of some sort of way of saying, hey, every source in this Docker file comes from here, and have a SHA or some kind of way of validating that, then Docker could be truly reproducible. However, it doesn't do that. It just tells you to write the commands for you. So when we start talking about Nix and what problems it solves, it really focuses on solving those problems in particular. With Docker, right, you have a daemon, right? You have a CLI tool, and then you have like your Docker file that you work with, right? With Nix, it's kind of similar, but it has its own separate tools that you use individually that you join together to making and doing these things. So the first thing with Nix is it has a language, right? So Nix itself is a language. Nix, just the word Nix, is a language, right? So this is a functional-esque programming language that is designed to work with the other parts of Nix to help build software, okay? But when we talk about it as a language, we're comparing it something to kind of like, again, a Docker file or something like that, right? The second thing that Nix is it is a package manager, okay? So when we say there are things like apt, there are things like yum, right? These are package managers, right? Well, Nix also is a package manager. However, the difference between something like yum and Nix is yum doesn't have a programming language that you can configure it with to then produce the exact types of builds and outputs that you need. So that is why Nix has those two pieces. It has the language, right? And then it has the package manager. And those two work together to make it so that you can build and reproduce software the same over and over and over again. There's a third piece to this, though, that we haven't talked about, and it actually pertains directly to Docker, and that is Docker's inputs versus Nix inputs. In a Docker input, you have something like a from at the very, very top of the file, right? From Go, from Rust, from whatever, from Alpine, right? Whatever. That is your entry point to your application, or I'm sorry, not to your application, your entry point to your Docker file, right? Well, in a Nix world, Nix doesn't just from the image per se, but it also froms the package manager where it says, all right, I'm going to download and see what version of the package manager we have. And I'm only going to use that specific version of the package manager so that if I even try and reinstall the same software 5 days later, well, guess what? I'm using a previous version of the package manager. And so I can only install the version that is locked for the package manager at that given date and time, right? And every single package that I install is then SHA checksummed and locked and all of that kind of stuff, right? These are things that Docker just doesn't provide. And because Nix has a language and other things like a package manager that works side by side, it can do that. It can say, all right, well, this is the package you said you needed from the package manager. Well, let's pack this with this, and then we'll make this. And then, like it's way more highly reproducible. So that is the second thing that is a part of the Nix ecosystem. The final and third thing is the Nix operating system. And together we call this the Nix Trinity. The TLDR here is that say you want to be able to build software, that's great, right? And you want to be able to do it in a language that you feel comfortable with doing it with, right? Cool, Nix package manager and Nix language. But say you also need to manage the operating system that packages or those packages are made from, right? So for example, say, I don't know, you need a specific version of, these lower level libraries that need to be installed or other things like that. And you want to manage the whole environment. You don't want to just manage the build, but you also want to manage, the operating system that the build is running in. And that is what NixOS is. And so NixOS makes it so that you can use the Nix language to configure the operating system, just like you would configure and build your Nix packages, okay? So these three things together are what make Nix so great. However, if you don't use the Nix package manager, right, then you might not have a really easy way of moving Nix packages around, right? That's the thing that makes Nix very difficult to work with at a lot of organizations. Even where I work at Hippo, we don't have a lot of these core designs in place where we're writing a lot of Nix language, where we're, creating Nix packages, where we're, doing all of this other things in the Nix operating system, right? We use Mac OS. We're writing, Node and JS applications and building them with Docker, right? Like, it's a completely different paradigm to how Nix works. However, when we go back to that problem I talked to you about before of reproducibility, and listen, you could go back to your companies. I challenge you to go to your companies and say that Docker is not truly reproducible, but is repeatable. I would love to see who, for starters, would even be able to understand what you're talking about. And then secondly, be able to have a conversation around that, because what you might notice is a lot of your companies have really bad problems around reproducibility versus repeatability. Also, who cares? Nah, I don't agree with that. I'm sorry. I can't. I understand that there's like a vector of like, we're not going to care about this and we're going to throw money at it. But the problem is really here, this is neglect, right? And this is a problem at Hippo. We neglect to build our software right. And it's something that frustrates the hell out of me. Like, I'm sorry to say it, but if you look at the actual Docker files in our builds, they're terrible. They're so terrible. They are not reproducible at all. It's not a made-up problem. Nah. I don't think it's a made-up problem. As somebody who just spent the last 4 months looking at our pipelines, no. I'm not buying that argument at all. That's fine. I mean, I think the main argument here is like, it's something that eventually you will gain technical debt for. It's something that you have to solve eventually, not a problem that we care to solve. I mean, sure, I can't make those decisions, right, Kenzo Dev? You can. Or not you, but yeah, as an organization. So maybe that's true, maybe that's right, but I don't know if I necessarily agree that that's a problem we shouldn't be solving, because it's a problem that's littered everywhere. Builds break all the time across tons of organizations. That's tons of money spent. I mean, I'm convincing you right now. We spend more money probably at Hippo on broken pipelines than we do successful ones. If not, I would say that the broken to successful probably, are not. And because a lot of those times, those broken pipelines are focused on huge jobs that take forever to build. And I don't know, a package got updated. You know what I mean? This is not a problem you can fix with Nix. I mean, it depends, right? Because Nix is always going to lock your packages. So what you would have to do with Nix is you would have a manual update process, right? You would have to figure out a way of doing it differently, because Nix doesn't really update. It just rebuilds. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I'm not going to get into this in stream. I'm just simply telling you that I do think it's a valuable thing, and I do think it's something that a lot of organizations deal with. But I appreciate your perspective. I don't fully agree with you, but we could talk about that later. I can't diverge the chat, so let's focus. My main point here is though it is true that no matter what, Docker is not going to give you the same reproducible output every time. It's not, and we can argue about that all day. Whether you care if that's a problem for your organization, sure, that's also totally up to you. I can also say, as somebody who works at my company, most people don't know how our systems are even built, and that's because we don't care about it. So I don't know. That would be my only kind of retort that I could say seriously, is like, I know on a handful of people of how actually they understand how our front ends, back ends, all of these things are built, and when the problems break, like where they go and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's just me. But you could, if you just build Node apps, don't you already have the lock file for it? So all right, let's talk about that. No, because you can't just say exactly, without breaking it down and looking at what they're actually saying. So what Whisper is saying is can't you just build node applications and you're good, right? I don't know. I mean, what if you use SQLize, right? What if you have lower level binaries or some type of dependent, like you use Node, sure, but then you need Node GYP, right? Then you need to figure out how to build for a non-Alpine image because the drivers that you use are specific to, Debian or other things like that, right? So I don't know if I can take the argument of if it's just package.json or Python, like I don't like it. The builds are still going to break potentially based off of other things that need to be built lower. Could it be potentially solved with Nix? I do think so. But again, I also think that in a lot of ways, I think we're kind of talking about two different things now at this point. What I'm talking about is just always making sure you get the same thing, right? In the scenario where you have a node package and you have SQLize, it will break. Because, well, I'm talking about a real world problem. I'm talking about a problem where package.lock never changed, but Alpine updated to 3.16, and now we're installing, PostgreSQL 14 drivers versus 13 drivers. Like, that's a real world problem that we have dealt with at Hippo, like literally, right? Like, how could we have fixed that? Well, if we had version locks around our packages and stuff like that. It's a real world potential problem. All right, but dude, like, let's not like, okay, I'm sorry. Anyways, let's move forward. I'd rather talk about this off air. Anyways, we're getting sidetracked now. Now we're just getting sidetracked. What I want to focus on here is what Nix can do. Okay, that's what I do want to focus on. And if you want to use it or if you don't, totally up to you, man. I don't like, again, I only show you this as an example. I don't prove this as like, this is fact. The only fact I can give you is Docker is not reproducible. If you don't care about that, whatever, okay? I don't care. I don't give a fuck. However, what I can show you is something that can give you that reproducibility if you're interested in it. And this was something that I was interested in when I started working with Nix, because one of the things I dealt with a lot was multiple computers and multiple editing or multiple setups and things like that. Sometimes I just want to like, yeah, it's okay. That is my I don't care anymore cackle. Just so you know. However, when I first started working with Nix, one of the reasons why I really wanted to use it is because of its reproducibility, right? I just wanted to run a command and get the exact same dev environment, all of that kind of stuff there. You know what I mean? And so that was really powerful to me. Nix can also do things like build for multiple platforms. Because it uses a programming language, you can be dynamic with it, and you could say like, well, any language really of any kind, any arc of any kind, whether it be, AMD 64, whether it be what's it called, ARM, whatever, Nix knows how to determine which package for which archetype to run against and then build that. That's something that's really cool. That was something that if you are now, again, Hippo's not this type of company, so we wouldn't care about this at all to justify us not needing Nix, right? We don't do multi-arc. We don't really build for anything besides just like Linux, x86, 64. So it wouldn't really matter to us at all. However, right, if we did, right, if we were, and honestly, this is where Nix, I think, does step in a lot, where like you're at a company where you're building hardware for different, or building software for different hardware and stuff like that, right? I do think that Nix can be really powerful because, again, that language is able to say, well, I don't really care about the architecture. I'm going to build it the same way for you. So yeah, without shitting on Nix too much here, let me try and show you a little bit about it, okay? But seriously, pretending like system dependencies aren't a real problem is naive at best. You may not be the build system engineer dealing with 18 different devs with builds problems, but I assure you that it is real. I mean, I agree. Some people don't, but I agree. I I think it is something that trickles down the chain and slowly gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And the reality of it is you probably as a company just get bigger and bigger and bigger, and you don't care about it as much because you're just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, right? Like, I don't disagree with what Kenzo Dev is saying, that like, yeah, we're so big that like, it's not like, who cares, right? Like, just, it's who cares? Like, that's fair. I get that. Like, he's not wrong. Why put money and investment into that and stuff like that? However, I don't know. I guess what I mean to say is, as a Hippo employee, I don't know if I fully agree that that's not a problem for us. And so maybe that's where my bias comes into play. But that's also where I feel like a lot of people feel that way when that is like actually challenged. It's like, yeah, but like, we deal with this shit every day, man. Like, like, yeah, I get it. But man, it would be great if I just didn't have to see this anymore. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. But so maybe that's just my personal biasness towards it. But like, I don't know. Thank you, OSP. I appreciate that. Like I said, I don't really want to try sounding super dismissive. I know we all have our perspectives. Some of us have different, things that we focus on at our companies and stuff like that. But like, I do think that system level dependencies are a massive problem that you deal with often, and something like this can really solve for it. Anywho, let's go back to the task at hand, which is, again, showing you how I brought Nix to LSP containers. So when we talk about Occam's razor always seems to have its place. It does. It really does. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Being able to distinguish when you need reproducibility versus repeatability is also very valid. You know what I mean? Being able to distinguish it is good, which is part of what Occam's razor is. It's also awesome to get reproducibility dev setup way better than stowing your stuff in Ansible or whatever. So yeah, so let's talk a little bit about Nix. Okay, so say I am a developer and I want a way of building something in Nix and making it so that I can easily distribute it, right? The best way of doing this probably in today's nature is by using what is called a flake. We've already talked about package.jsons. Flakes are pretty much the identical. Now, again, I really am not going to go too down the road of like what exactly a flake is, mostly because I literally have a video on it called How to Develop with Flakes. So I highly recommend you go take a look at that video. I will show the flake. Yeah, I will show it. But the TLDR is you can think of a flake as basically like a package.json, right? The package.json has got what's, your package dependencies and, your scripts and all that stuff, right? Well, a flake is essentially the same thing, but it's with Nix. And so if we talk about, well, why do we need a flake with LSP containers? Let me explain. Right now, LSP containers is powered entirely by containers, right? That's it, right? So when you go and start a process, and here, I'll do it again really quickly, right? When you go and start a process, here, let's go to, let me just do a quick example here. We'll go Rust test project. Okay, cool. So lazy Docker, we'll go here, right? And then we'll just do, bam. Okay. Right. So watch what happens on the right once I open. So I've got I've got my container stuff over here, right? And I've got my editor here. I'm going to actually show you what happens when I open a Rust file. So I'm going to hit enter, right? Right now, nothing's happening, or it would appear nothing is happening, right? What's actually happening is Docker has started my container, right? And it is now downloading my image. In a few moments, we should see an image appear here. Now, this is a 1.4 gigabyte image. So this is probably, if not the biggest image we have, which is why this is taking so long. However, what you'll notice though is like, again, it's not really impacting my development experience. I can still edit and do all those things, but then there we go. Now we could see Rust Analyzer's been pulled and the container's been started, right? And so now if I do like Shift K, for example, it's going to go out and trigger to download. This is where Rust Analyzer is like kind of different from other editor or other language servers. Is Rust Analyzer is actually going to go out and download specific metadata related to, you know, this function. So now you can see I'm actually getting highlight data on the print line, right? And so, yeah, like this is basically how LSP containers works. Once I close the editor, the container goes away. The image stays, right? But the container goes away. So showing you that process and how LSP containers works, think about how I can develop with it, right? What did you run to get this container TUI? Lazy Docker. Lazy Docker. Yeah, it's this guy basically made a whole bunch of like lazy tools. He's got like lazy Git, lazy Docker, lazy npm. They're really nice. I use a lot of them. So yeah. So anyways, I those Dockers are lazy. They are very lazy. Yeah. This again basically gives you an idea of how all this works. So when we talk about developing with it, there's a few things we need to think about. Well, first off, right, we need Neovim. Oh, by the way, Glam, dude, thank you for the 4 months, dude. I'm so sorry. I was in a heated debate over technical things, and I hope I didn't like frustrate anyone for that. Honestly, I deal with this daily, and I'm constantly dealing with like broken pipelines and other things that I'm just very passionate about it. I'm very passionate about the build process of software. I really am, because I do really deal with it a lot. But anyways, yeah, I didn't mean to miss your 4 months there, buddy. My bad. So we need an editor, right? So we're gonna need an editor, Neovim, preferably, and preferably we'd really like Neovim latest, right? So we need Neovim latest. We need some kind of basic. So yeah, here we go. So here, this is more of what we're looking for. This is where I kind of started with, right? So we need some type of Neovim environment, right? Now, when I was like, all right, well, I'm going to try making a dev environment for LSP containers, I was like, all right, well, what can I lean on that already exists? And as a matter of fact, there's somebody in chat who I was literally just debating with who taught me that, which is lean on what you already have, at least, you know, try to first before you try, you know, making new solutions and stuff like that, or finding the best solution. And so in this case, I wanted to look at this and I want to say, okay, well, what do I have first, right? LSP containers is pretty much all done in containers, right? And so I was like, all right, well, maybe I can find a way where I can like build Neovim in a container, right? So that we have like an LSP containers Neovim custom container, right? And then maybe in that we'll be able to run Neovim, but then like that needs to run a container within a container, right? And then on top of that, it also needs like test source code and test Neovim configuration. So like think about just like some of these pieces as we put them together, right? How LSP containers works is it runs Neovim, and then when you open up source code, it basically fires a container, right, for your language server. To develop this, we're thinking, or at least in this first iteration, we were thinking like, okay, well, you know, I want a portable Neovim that like has, again, our test configuration, has our test source code, like all this stuff in it, so that if I was a developer, like if you, for example, Chad, if one of you guys wanted to work on LSP containers, then you could easily just say, cool, I'm going to, you know, download the Neovim container, I'm going to run this, and then bam, I can start using LSP containers directly. And I tried this. The problem with LSP containers intrinsically is that it is running containers. And if anybody here has ever tried running containers in containers, you know that that is not fun. Basically, what I got working was I got Neovim in the container, no problem. That was pretty easy. You know what I mean? Getting a test configuration and even test source code was also pretty easy, right? The problem was around starting the container and permissions, right? Now, I could even go as far as saying when I start, well, and Maluba, I'm just about to get into that. I can go as far as saying, okay, cool, check this out. when I start my Neovim container, I'm going to mount a Docker socket, right? Cool. That's an easy way of doing Docker in Docker, where you just say, okay, Neovim container, mount the host Docker socket, and then use the Docker CLI, right? And that's what I did. I created an LSP Docker file, LSP containers Neovim Docker file with not only Neovim in it and my test code and, my test configuration, but also it had the Docker CLI and the socket mounted to it. Well, what did that solve? Well, that solved me being able to start containers, right? But there's one other problem now, which is this container here has started based off of the paths within the container that Neovim is running in, not the one on my host, right? So when I start Neovim in the container, I'm now somewhere in like, user source app or something like that, right? But on my computer, I'm in like, home development, blah, 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 right? So when the Rust Analyzer container starts, there's two problems. The first one is that it references this path here to try to mount directories and things like that it needs, right? The Rust Analyzer has to see files on your file system, but it's trying to mount things within the container, but it's using this path. So technically what it's doing is in Docker and Docker, this is mounting to user source app on our home, like on our actual host, right? So then we say like, okay, well, we could figure out a way of like rewriting the paths. So like if it's in a container, then it like uses different, it slowly started becoming this more of a nightmare where it was like, because it was in a container, right? Because it was in a container, it was constantly hitting walls of permissions or mounting issues or things like that. And I'm not going to lie, I spent a good part of Saturday just trying to containerize Neovim, right? Get it in a Docker container and then have that Neovim run outside of that container, the language server, and have all that to work. It became very, very difficult. Now, again, I do think, and again, I'm gonna give justification here to what Kenzo Dev was saying earlier. You do have to find value enough to, solving a problem at an organization. I deal with, again, what I deal with daily, which is why I'm so passionate about it. But I guess what I mean to say is like, I forgot. I lost my train of thought. Shoot, I lost my train of thought. I was literally about to go somewhere and then I lost my train of thought. Crap. I was talking about the paths. Oh, crap. I literally just blanked. What's up, Pravan? I looked at your message, Pravan, and then I broke my train of thought. Finding value of doing. Okay, thank you. Finding value doing something. Yes, thank you. So like I said, I find value in doing all these things, and I'm very passionate about it because I deal with it daily, right? But as somebody who works, either at a much higher level or looking at much different things, it's totally understandable why you might have a different perspective. One of the things that I could say I think is really valuable in general is being able to look at saying like, okay, is this solving a problem that is really, really big and dealing with, something we deal with often, right? Looking at this, I realized that if I tried solving this way with Docker, I was just going to have continual problems, right? I realized like, okay, this is just going to be like, is it going to work on this computer versus this computer? Is it going to do this versus that, right? That was really important to me. And, to justify what Kenzo Dev or, what we were talking about in chat earlier, when you compare the amount of repositories we have in general versus the amount of repositories that are actually failing towards this problem, that is probably, probably less than more. Like, we do have a lot of them that die often doing the same thing, but we do also have a lot of them that just we don't care about, we don't worry about, we don't focus about. However, they are kind of ticking time bombs, I will say. So we'll see how far that goes. But anyways, this was more of a problem where I was like, okay, like I'm just hitting more and more walls here. Again, I would get Neovim in the container, but then I'd hit this and do that. So that's where I was like, okay, I need to find something else valuable that can solve this problem for me, because unfortunately Docker just really isn't doing it. And that's where Nix stepped in, right? One of the nice things about Nix is that Nix does not require you to have any type of virtualization layer. What Nix actually does is it runs builds on your computer just like it would anywhere else, right? Nix doesn't really have this concept of upgrading. It just has this concept of updating, where you just tell Nix, hey, I want to get this new, like, I want to pull from this new version in time. And then it goes out and gets from that new version in time and rebuilds it, right? And Nix is also very powerful because Nix can then store these things and make it so that you can easily run them. So when I was looking at this, I was like, man, I wonder if it's possible for, now again, I'm not going to go over the Docker approach with Neovim because I feel like we all kind of understand how that would look, right? We would have a Docker file of some sort. It'd have like from Alpine, and then you'd like install Neovim, right? Like all that kind of shit. Like that's pretty standard. We're all probably used to most of that part of my language. But I wondered the same thing with Nix. I was like, is it possible for me to essentially create a package in Nix or a derivation in Nix that is my own custom Neovim, right? With my own configuration, my own, version of Neovim, right? Like almost build like a binary that is our Neovim setup for LSP containers. It'll have the test configuration baked into it. It'll have the plugins it needs baked into it. It'll have all these things that it needs so that if I just run Neovim, it can start using LSP containers natively on my computer, right? As if I was just opening my normal Neovim. So what does that look like, right? Well, if I open up my normal Neovim, right, you can see here I've got like my normal, like my little taskbar thing down at the bottom. And you can see like I can open up like Git files and like basically, I have my editor here, right? Now I don't need all of this, but what I do want at the bare minimum is a Neovim that I can open that has, again, the LSP containers plugin installed already, any other dependent plugins it needs, and just the bare bones requirement to being able to run. Well, what this is going to do is this is basically going to say, well, now Neovim in this case is our Nix build, right? And so when I run Neovim as my Nix build, or my Nix flake is what we'll call it really, because this is a flake, right? Then it will still open up source code like it normally does. It'll still run the plugins and all that stuff. However, it is now a custom Neovim that I can reproduce and rebuild anywhere, right? Now, I do fully think that for anybody out there who's like a naysayer of Nix, you need to listen to this, okay? This is very, very important. Docker has some really great tools and features and functionality around, taking a image and moving it from host to host, right? So if I was a developer and I was, looking at a Toda and I said, a Toda, I just made changes in my repository. I want you to now take my source code, rebuild my changes, and run them, right? What you would have to do is you would have to either build the image, right? And then push it up to a registry, and then they could pull that image down. Or you'd have to push the source code up and then pull down the source code changes and rebuild your image, right? That's basically how you would probably do it if you had a Docker workflow. With Nix and the power of Flakes, I can literally run your code in your branch with the Nix CLI tool. So I'm going to show that to you now. If I wanted to, say I was like, I want to test LSP containers Neovim with Rust, and I want to test it against master. because Nix has such a powerful development tool set, what I can do is after I make my flake in my repo, right? I can then tell Nix at any point, hey, Nix, I want you to run GitHub LSP containers / LSP containers.nvim and then the output Neovim. What this is going to do is this is going to go out to my repository, right? And it's going to read this flake file that we're going to look at in a second here. And then it's going to say, okay, well, you want the Neovim package from this, right? Well, what does that mean? Well, it means that we have a custom RC. It means that we have to install nvim lsp config as well as our main package default, which is our plugin ourself, LSP containers. And then that's going to deliver us, right, an app that we can run using Nix run, right? And you'll see here that the program we run called for Neovim is self packages system neovim bin nvim. So what's happening in this flake file, and again, I'll go over for a bit more in a second, in 50 lines of code, chat, look at this, 50 lines of code, right? I was able to declare the packages I want to build with Nix, right? First, the default being my Vim plugin, build Vim plugin from to Nix, right? And the second thing being a literal Neovim custom image or custom binary that I want that has a custom RC baked into it, right? As well as packages that I need, right? So in a Docker container standpoint, right, you'd probably go like, okay, I want to pull the image and run it. But with a Nix Flake standpoint, I don't need to pull anything. All I need to do is point Nix run at the repository and tell it the output I want. And so when I run that and I hit enter, you'll notice that it happens instantaneously, right? And that's because I've already pulled down and run it. But I think, let's see here. I think there's a way to like rebuild. Hold on. Debugger args impure common derivation file. Okay, so mine's happening instantly just simply because I've already cached it. And Nix is also something that caches things. So if I run this more than once, it'll be instantaneously the next time. But have you look at the difference here. Look at the difference. All right, so here's the Neovim on the left, and here's my normal Neovim. Same terminal, right? I just opened up a new terminal and I hit Neovim, right? So here's nvim here, and then here's Neovim running in my flake. So you could tell that they're different. You can automatically tell that they're different. Do I need a Docker container for this? No. Do I need an image? No. I just need to point Nix at my source code, and then Nix knows how to read that flake, run it, and build and then use it. But this would only help if both users have Nix OS, right? So this isn't a requirement of Nix OS. It does require Nix, though. So the Nix operating system is not a requirement to running Nix program or builds and packages and stuff like that, right? So this is what I wanted to really show you guys as to why I decided to use Nix with LSP containers, was because when I tried applying Docker, right, to development with LSP containers, having Docker and all of these other things just didn't work. It didn't play well. It was frustrating, and I was constantly dealing with shit. You know what I mean? However, when we just say, all right, well, we're not going to worry about how we, build it or publish it from a Docker perspective, but we're going to focus more on just like, how can we get a reproducible image of Neovim available so that developers can run it in a lot of ways. Like, if what's really interesting is, for example, if I go to repository LSP containers right here, and then I go to main like this, lazy git. Yeah. So if I do this really quickly, I can also do Nix run dot like this, and look at that. So not only can I do Nix run remotely, but then if I was like, well, I want to make sure I have the source code and stuff, then I could just pull the source code and then do Nix run directly. And you'll notice that it did do some changes because I pushed some changes to, I added some changes to the source code. And here's the funny part is those changes aren't even related to Neovim. They're just the init.lua. But because the build includes the init.lua in the flake, right, it has to rebuild everything. It's a brand new build artifact. And this is another reason why I say Docker and Nix in this regard are separate. It's very common with Docker for you to build an image and not get what is called the same SHA, right? You can tag a Docker image with whatever you want. You can call it master, main, whatever, 1,000 times over and over again, but it won't actually represent the changes that you are expecting in that Docker file, right? Or in the changes that you pushed. Who knows? Maybe you had two builds right after another and one went before the other. And so the previous build actually happened after the next build. And so what actually happened was your first build went out, or your second build went out first, and then your first build went out second. Like, things like that definitely make it challenging to understand what change are we on? Like, I don't know. And things like that, again, or things like this can be super helpful with that. You can also do other ways of doing it, but you have to add those things. You have to be like, all right, I'm going to add to my Docker file a SHA version and then like inject that SHA into the image, which is what we do at Hippo. We do that. So then we could say like, okay, this is literally the SHA in this container that we built. So like I said, using Nix, we were able to, again, with like 50 lines of code, basically create a reproducible derivation or a couple derivations of what we needed. So let me go ahead and go through this really quickly to show you a little bit more of like what all is going on here. And then we'll hop into the Nix pills, at least for the last like hour or so. Okay, so like I said, with LSP containers, we needed a way of running Neovim natively on the operating system. We really did not want to put it in a container and then try like having containers running containers and stuff like that, right? So in this scenario, what we have is when we run our Nix flake, right? Nix run .neovim, or run it remotely, right? What we get is a custom built Neovim binary, right? With a custom init.lua, right? And here's our init.lua. This is the custom init.lua right here, right? So this gets added to the Neovim build, as well as if we go to our flake, we get nvim lsp config added as a Vim plugin, right? And then our actual, so like this is what's really cool as well about Nix, chat, is once you have one package, these packages are interoperable with others. This is kind of similar to how like how like build stages work in Docker files, where you can have like one build stage that then like takes data from another build stage. The idea here is that in this flake, we have a set of packages that we actually want Nix to declare as outputs. And so, for example, you'll see default and Neovim. And so if I do Nix flake show, you'll see here that the outputs of the Nix flake are apps, a Neovim application, right? That exists on Darwin Linux, on ARM Darwin, ARM Linux, x64 Darwin, and x64 Linux. We have a dev shell, right? Which is an actual development environment with a Nix shell, right? And that's available on ARM Darwin, ARM Linux, x64 Darwin, x64 Linux. And then we have multiple packages on those same architectures, because remember, Nix knows how to build from multiple architectures. And so same thing, but you'll see here we have our default package, which is a Vim plugin, right? LSP containers and Vim. So by default, this flake gives you a Vim plugin, right? However, if you want to use the custom Neovim package that comes with it, then you get Neovim with the plugin baked inside of it, right? And that's why we have this Neovim alternative here. Yo, what's up, Owen? How's it going, buddy? And so again, when we run Nix run like this, we're actually getting that new Neovim with just that configuration. And that's why, again, that's why it looks different, because like if I do space FG or space FF here, right, you'll see I open up find files, right? But if I do it here, I don't have space FF here. Like, look, you see F appearing over here. space FF, space FF, space FF. Like I don't have my whole configuration. It's literally just, that configuration we added. And what's really nice too is because this is in Nix now, this is completely reproducible. Like if anybody else out in the world uses Nix, who else? Does anyone else here have Nix at the moment? Does anyone else here have Nix? Just curious. Because if you run this command right here, it should work. And you should get a Neovim that if you have Docker on it. Okay, well, so Jared, here's what you should be able to do. If you have Docker on your computer, you should be able to run that command and then in the editor, open up a JavaScript file and it will run and download it'll pull the editor or pull the container for you and stuff like that, right? And like now, like Jared, now you have the literal exact Neovim that I have, right? That's the power of being able to use Nix. Is like if I was a developer, like I said, and I wanted Jared to really quickly test out my code, I just go, hey, there you go, run this. Does it work for you? And if it works, bam, we're good, done. You know what I mean? That was something I really liked about this as well. And like I said, because we're running it as a natural binary on the computer in its own custom build and stuff like that, in its own isolated environment. Oh, you have Podman? Oh, don't worry. It's not configured with Podman right now. Yeah, I have to make the configuration set to... So that default one, we'll probably need to make like Neovim Docker, Neovim Podman, because we do support it, but I did not create an output for Podman, so my bad. I apologize. But yeah, it should work no problem. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about the Flake, and then we're going to get into the language a bit more, okay? So like I said, and I'm just gonna keep pumping this out here. If you go to our YouTube, right, there is a developing using Nix Flakes video. I highly recommend you take a look at this video because this video is gonna go over a lot of what I'm about to go over. So when it's going through stage and prod, would you Nix too? So to be clear, right? Nix is not really a part of the like deployment op stage. Okay. It can build the thing for you, but it's up to you to figure out like how to get it there. Like this is where Nix is not as good, right? Docker is super nice. And like for example, I would not say like at Hippo for us to run all of our deployments with Nix. That would not be good. We would not work as well as we do with our current setup, for sure. Our current setup is amazing. However, with a Nix setup, it's kind of still being, honestly, it's still kind of being defined. Like I'm in a conversation right now. There's a Nix deployments, like in the official, what is this called? Matrix or whatever. There's like a Nix deployments channel where I think a lot of us just sit and like want to see and learn. But like, as you could tell, there's not a lot of conversations going on around it. It's something I want to improve myself personally. I would like to improve how Nix deployments works because I don't even really know how well they are. Ideally, what you would do is you would build your application with Nix, and then you would probably like shove that in a Docker file because you can actually build Nix images with Docker. And it's kind of the best of both worlds where you build your Nix image you build your Nix program into Docker using a Nix OS essentially. And then you can distribute that with Docker and you get the best of both worlds. You can build it with reproducibility inside of Docker, right? Because it's using Nix OS. And then you can take that and replicate it across a whole bunch of servers, which honestly, that would probably be my ideal. People at Hippo would probably never let that happen. But like, going back to the conversation I was having earlier of like solving that problem, that's how I think we would probably solve that problem at Hippo. We would make we'd make all of our Docker files build with Nix. And so we'd actually have Nix Flakes that build in our Docker files, so that it's reproducible every time, right? And then that gets shipped out as a Docker container. But I don't think that's gonna. Unfortunately, I don't think that's gonna happen. there seems to be a lot of negative stigma around Nix at my company, so it's a bit unfortunate, but it is what it is. I don't know. I'm new to Nix. What's the best use case for it? Well, I'm still trying to work on that, honestly. Like I said, with kind of what I just exemplified, I think that, if you have a scenario where, you can't containerize something, but you still need it to be highly reproducible. You want it to be pretty decently shareable, have a really good development cycle and stuff like that. I think Nix is a really good, option, right? You can build the packages. You can basically, reuse those packages and reproduce those packages pretty easily. And again, like I said, I can, without needing containers, I can basically give somebody a one-liner and they'll get the exact same thing that I expect. The only difference is, they'll have to build it too. So for example, if I told somebody to do this run and they never built it before, then, there's a build step, but you would get the exact same build, right? So yeah, if you want to remove the overhead of containers, right, and not deal with everything that's involved, juggling, trying to figure out how to build containers, right? Like, as I said before, and again, I know this is like, more of a concern to some than others, but like, I would imagine most of us here deal with random broken Docker files at any given time. Something happens, an updated package, so you know what I mean? And Nix really does try and solve the problem of just simply not letting anything change, right? Like bottom line, the only reason why Nix is so reproducible is just simply because it doesn't let anything change, right? When you add a package to Nix, it locks that version and then says like, okay, I'm not changing it until you tell me to change it. And so that's what makes it reproducible, right? It's not like necessarily that the goal of it's just to be reproducible. It's you get that outcome because you say, well, if nothing changes, it's reproducible. And so, yeah, like Docker just has, and again, like, I don't know, maybe I'm just like a major neckbeard. And at this point, I'm just arguing semantics over people who don't, or with people who don't care about it. But I genuinely like, yeah, it's a major flaw in Docker and how it works that at any given time, depending on when you build something, anything could change under it. You know what I mean? Like it really could. It really could. You do not have it's all up to you to lock those things down. Nix can solve those things for you naturally because of how it works. So you share your exact same Neo config with that command, or am I missing some stuff? No, that's it. Yeah, it's a completely portable Neovim that now I can easily give to developers who are working on, on LSP containers and say, hey, even if they don't have, like, as long as they have, this is one of those things where, like, even though I'm not using Docker, I'm still leaning on a lot of the same concepts of, like, reusability, right? Reproducibility, or what is it called? Not reproducibility, repeatability, right? Where I'm saying, like, I want to lean on something that's going to automate these things for me. It might not be Docker in this case, but it is Nix, right? So having that really, really nice development workflow, again, of being able to just quickly make a bunch of changes and then be like, here to somebody is very, very powerful, whether it be Docker or Nix, right? Or any other type of tooling like that. Is Nix like virtual env? So to go into a little bit more detail before I take my break here, Nix on a technical level works a lot like Homebrew. Now, for anybody out there who uses, for anybody out there who uses Nix and just went, I cannot believe you just compared it to Homebrew, you terrible person, relax. Nobody else knows how to understand Nix the way we do, so I have to figure out a better way of explaining it, okay? With that being said, Nix has what is called a Nix store. And just like Homebrew, it puts all of your builds and everything in that Nix store. As a matter of fact, if I go ls Nix store, right, -lh, every single one of these is a package or build of some sort. So like, look here. So we've got like Vim plugin, Vim Nix, OpenSSL, Neovim, right? Python, Bison, right? All of these things, like when I tell you that Nix knows about every single thing you build, I'm not kidding. Docker cannot supply you with this. It cannot. What I'm showing you is the outputs and the build artifacts of every single thing I've built on my computer using Nix. But what happens is Nix basically stores all of these in this immutable, what we're going to call immutable path. None of these are changeable. You can't change these. It's all, look, read. That's because Nix writes it and then it doesn't change it. Again, immutable. Cannot be changed, right? These SHAs validate the change, right? So if I had to build sound theme free desktop again, and it wasn't the exact same code with the exact same inputs, this wouldn't have the same SHA. It'd have a completely different SHA, right? Reproducible down to the T. And so, yeah, these are what are referenced when we run this command, right? So when I run this command, if I was to do, I believe there's a way to do like echo standard std io data. I don't remember how to do echo. There we go. So you see how my standard path is home, Eric Reiner, blah, 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 whatever. There are other paths though. Like for example, if I was to do like, where is NVim? Look at where my Neovim actually exists. It's in my store, right? So that's what happens is Nix builds all of these things, puts them all in the store, links them all together, and then gives you a shell with everything you need inside of it, with all those things you said you needed inside of it. And that's how Nix works. Basically, that's basically how it does it. So with regards to LSP containers, it builds the Vim plugin. So as a matter of fact, here, let's do this. Nix store, right? And let's do ls-alh, and then we'll grep LSP containers. Look at that. I have built LSP containers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different times. Well, no, at least 10 different times. Yeah. Some of them are derivations directly, whereas some of them are references. But these are 10 different ways, 10 different builds of LSP containers of changes. Now, if I ever went back to that previous change set, then is it 5? Oh, maybe it's 5. 1, 2. Is it just the derivation? Okay, maybe it's 5. 5 derivations and 5 binaries. Thank you. Yes, my bad. 5 derivations and 5 binaries. So the DRVs and the binary, I didn't know if these went with each other or if the derivation included the binary. So that's my bad. So 5, my bad. 5, yeah. But yeah, these derivations essentially link to each other. They would link to other. So like, for example, it's not just LSP containers, but it's also LSP config, right? Look at that, NVim LSP config. So one of these plugins is going to have a reference to one of these other plugins, right? Do you guys see how this works now? Is it clicking on like how, again, it's kind of like Homebrew in the sense that like everything just gets put somewhere, except for it's way better that in the sense that like they don't get touched, they can't be modified. If a new one happens, like you just rebuild with Nix. You don't overwrite, right? These are all new, completely immutable, and cannot be changed. So that should give you an idea of what these are, right? So this translates to this, right? One of these derivations, right? And then same thing with like Neovim, right? So if I wanted to, I could say Neovim, and yeah, you'll see quite a bit of Neovims in here that have been built. Unwrapped master, unwrapped, all of these, yeah. So cool. Okay, so that should explain. Does anyone have any questions? Let me catch up with chat. Does anyone have any questions about Nix before I go further and how we're using it? Like I said, don't worry about this, like the actual logic. The main point I want you guys to know is that we are building a custom Neovim binary, right? Or derivation, what it's called in Nix, using a Nix flake. And doing so, we are building our own Nix Vim plugin. So Vim plugin in Nix, right? And then we're injecting it into our Neovim that we're building with Nix using the Vim plugins array, right? So you'll see we've got nvim lsp config because that's what lsp containers depends on. And then we've also got lsp containers itself referenced from here, right? And so the last thing we do is we say init.lua is what we inject into our custom RC so that when Neovim runs, it has its own custom configuration as well as its own packages and all that stuff that it needs to test with, right? So yeah, let me catch up with chat. So you share your exact same Neovim with that command. Oh yeah. So like portable apps. So I mean, again, this isn't necessarily portable in the sense that like we're shipping these to production. This is more like, you know, it could just be portable anywhere. If I wanted it to run in production, I guess I could, you know. Yeah, just depends. Bottom. The thing on the right is called bottom. BTM, yeah. What is the as someone who only knows Windows System Administrator and deployments and images in the terms of using management SCCM, which packages the provider only require understanding, what is the benefit of these packages containers you are talking about? So above and beyond, I'm not gonna lie, what you're talking about is a lot more based off of your organization's like preferences of, you know, how you manage stuff. You said that you work with Windows System Administration. We're not really talking about that unless you're talking about like cloud administration with servers. If that's the regard, we're not talking about that either. Virtual machines could run NixOS, right? But Nix and NixOS are just, things you're going to build essentially and then put somewhere. The virtualization layer, like Nix doesn't handle any of that stuff. There's some tools that will create like virtual machines for you and kind of handle deployments for Nix. They're still very new though, so I don't know how good they are. You know what I mean? That's my only thing there. I just don't know how good they are. Outside of that, if we go a little bit lower down the stack, we talk about the operating system. There's NixOS, so you could have virtual machines running NixOS. That customize your whole operating system, right? So what packages are installed, all of that kind of stuff. So for example, if you were a Windows System Administrator who created Linux boxes for their developers, then you could create a flake, right? You create a very simple flake that had like Neovim installed with all of its dependencies and everything else, and then just like rebuild that into an image over and over and over and over and over again, right? Like that's a way that you could use Nix and it'd be super powerful. However, you don't even need an image for that. You could just use a flake. And another thing we haven't really talked about yet is dev shells. And I do talk about this in the YouTube video there, but basically what you can do is you can also do Nix develop. And when you do that, it actually creates you a whole separate shell, right? You can see now I'm in a completely separate shell with everything you need. So like, for example, if I do where is nvim, right? And then I do where is nvim, you're going to notice that they're in two separate places. In my shell, it's pointed to store pnk, blah, 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 but outside of my store, it's pointed to 237, blah, 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 right? And that's because when you do Nix develop, like using a container to develop, or whatever code spaces, whatever else you want to call them, it will create a whole new shell with everything inside. And you'll notice that when I open up Neovim, I'm getting that same, Neovim basic demo temp tester, thing that we had earlier. So yeah, like there's a lot of really, really cool and powerful things that you can do with Nix. I'm not saying it's going to solve every problem on the planet. And to be fair, to ask me what can you really use with it? It's kind of be up to you and like what problems you need to solve. There's a lot of different problems out there. You might have certain places where it can solve super well. I see the application now. Nice. Yo, Adriana, hello. What are we working on? Well, I'm educating everybody on Nix. We're also talking a little bit about DevOps in general and stuff like that. So hello. But yeah, that's basically the TLDR. Okay, cool. So again, we're now using this to develop with LSP containers. And let me show you the development flow really quickly, okay? So what I'm going to do first is I'm actually going to open up Neovim normally, right? So I'm going to go to like the Lua file, and then say, for example, I want to test something. So I'm going to comment out the RM there, and I'm going to comment the RM out here, right? Say, for example, I just need to test containers, and I need them to stay. By default, or once a container is stopped, it gets removed, right? So say I need to debug that. And so I'm like, all right, cool. So I've got that added to my code, right? Let's do this. Let's open up lazy Docker, right? And you'll see here, we've got Rust Analyzer already. So, okay, let's go ahead and just open up a Rust file. But what we should see is not just the Rust Analyzer after we close the editor, but we should see that container stay there too, simply just because I left that flag changed. So I'm going to go to Rust really quickly, test project. We're going to do nix run. I need to go up a couple directories. So repository, yep, there we go. Neovim. So if I hit enter, you'll notice that there was a second where it had to update because I added some changes to my code, right? And so now I'm going to edit and open the main RS. You could see, okay, dope. There's my container already started. Awesome, right? And there you go. I have output as well. Cool. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quit. Boom. Look at that. Look, now it's in exited. And if I wanted to, I can look at the logs from the container, right? So that's the development process, right? I can go make a couple of changes, rerun nix run. Nix run will quickly rebuild for me, and then it'll immediately give me access to Neovim so I can test it and stuff like that. And so this is really nice, right? This makes it so that it doesn't change, like it doesn't impact my Neovim. It doesn't change how like I use my Neovim, right? It's just a completely separate Neovim that I can run at any given time. And yeah, all powered by the beauty of Flakes. Thank you for the follow, by the way. Alacrity, no, this is Kitty. I'm using Kitty. How does Nix know which build to use from the store? Nix keeps, yeah, it does. It keeps a track of everything. So Nix does actually have a database as well. It uses a very, very small SQL-like database. I don't know exactly where it is, but it does. Yeah, database. There you go. Boop. There it is right there. And so this is where like references, I think, as well as like a lot of other stuff. Now, a lot of these are in the derivations, but there are other things in this database too. Did you move to Kitty because Alacrity doesn't support ligatures? Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much, yeah. That's why like my graphs and stuff look nice again. I might use this to learn Neovim key bindings. Hey, go for it. Does anyone have any other questions about how all of this at least works with regards to LSP containers? So we all understand now that we're using a Nix flake, right? We're using a Nix flake to build not just our plugin, right? So we can, if we wanted to, we could just use Nix to build our plugin because it has a utility called vim utils build vim plugin from to Nix, right? So if we wanted to, we could just do that. But because we're reusing Nix in multiple places, what we can actually say is, all right, well, we're going to build our Vim plugin, and then we're going to also build a Neovim with our Vim plugin in it. And that Neovim is something that anybody can use, right? No, nothing broke. We're good. I just had to check my laptop really quickly, make sure I wasn't missing any messages. What do I recommend for terminal movement? I3. If that's what you mean. Yeah, I3. Cool. Okay, dope. All right. So with that being said, here's what I'd like to do now. For the next, what do we got? Like hour-ish, like, hour-ish. What I would like to do is I would like to jump into our pills, right? I'd like to jump back into our pills because honestly, I spent a little bit more time on that than I wanted to. But I do want to jump back into the actual basics of the language and kind of get back to learning Nix as a whole. If you guys don't know, I have been walking us through the Nix Pills series. If you guys don't know what the Nix Pills series is, it's just a really nice series on the internet that was written basically by people in the community on how to learn Nix and kind of a step-by-step guide of what everything is. To be honest with you, I've shown you a lot of the first few things, like the installations, how the Nix stores work, or how the Nix store works, the database. I didn't talk about profiles, so you guys can look at that later. I didn't really talk about expressions or anything. I showed you guys entering the environment using Nix develop and all that kind of stuff. And so now we're really at the point where it's like, all right, you've gotten to play with the CLI a little bit. You kind of gotten to see like what everything looks like, right? Now let's actually look at the language, right? And understand like how exactly we write Nix Flakes and configurations and use this. Just to note, Nix is, as it says here, a pure, lazy functional language, right? So by default, it's functional, but it's lazy, meaning it lazy loads pretty much everything, which is really nice. But we are going to take a look at this. So if you've never worked with like a functional language before, some of this may be a little new to you, might be a little confusing, but don't worry, we'll get through it together. I'm good at breaking things in production. Nice. I appreciate that, Neon. Welcome to the fourth. What's up, Right Joy-Con? How's it going, buddy? I like that you. So what you guys don't realize is Right Joy-Con probably waited for the right time to be able to copy and paste something from the internet so that he could then resubscribe. I love that. He does that every time. RJZ, thank you for the 20 months, dude, at tier 3, dude. Thank you so much, buddy. What is DevOps in a nutshell? Insanity. Probably my best bet to answer it. Yeah, just pure insanity. Yeah. Is Nix true lazy? Ugh, that's a good question. I don't know. As somebody who probably works with Haskell, which I'm sure you probably do, I don't know. I'm not too sure on that one. I don't know if it's truly lazy, or I would imagine it might be non-strict because it's, pretty open, but I don't know. I honestly don't know. Yeah, I'm not too sure on that one. Yo, how's it going, Tanny? How's it going? Oh, honestly, I wish I was at KubeCon right now. I really do. We'll go there next year. We'll be there next year. Don't worry. We'll be there next year, Tanny. What is DevOps in a nutshell, though? The easiest way to explain what DevOps is in a nutshell is it is the job of supporting and solving problems at a organizational level for developers and your infrastructure. So a lot of my job is focused on making sure that developers have good, development cycles, right? That they can easily push their code and it easily builds and it's expected, like all that stuff, like that whole and I'm not saying like what technology we use, like that's not really like it's part of what I do, but I don't care about those things, right? Like technologies and what they are really don't mean anything. It's more about, are we using, the right methods and the right procedures and policies to get to where we are? And then the second thing is, taking that to the company and saying like, okay, what are the company problems? How can we solve them? How can we use these standards and practices that we've created and, solve company problems? How can we create new ones when new problems arise? Things like that. So it's less about just creating buckets in the cloud and a lot more about literally looking, or at least where I would work. I guess that's a better way of putting it. I would only work at a company where DevOps was like that. I don't think I would work anywhere else. So yeah. Do I work remotely? Yes, I do. Yeah, I do. Yo, happy Diwali. Hello, Josh. I didn't even realize that was today. That's awesome. A bit off topic, but do you have any tips on convincing team members to use more dev tools and improve the pipelines? So Cal, I think what was really great, if you guys don't know, by the way, the person who was in here earlier, Kenzo Dev, he's a coworker of mine. He's awesome, probably truly one of the most brilliant people I know. He's built a lot of what we kind of lean on at Hippo. And it's probably why he and I, have such strong opinions about things. You need to be around a team like that. Like, even if, Avi and I view things differently, we still respect each other quite majorly because of the experience and, the opinions that we share, and I think one thing that I respect of him is like, even though he might not be interested in Nix or any of these other things, I'm still allowed to share them. Right. So I think for starters, you have to be on a team that you feel that comfortable with, Cal, where you feel like you can share these things and people are going to listen. Right. And sometimes, like, it's hard. Like, sometimes even I feel that way. Like, I get it, but you need to be like, to be honest with you, I don't really talk about Nix at work because I am aware of how difficult it actually would be to applying it at where I work. And again, like, you kind of saw that, chat kind of saw that with the conversation me and Kenzo Dev were having. You know what I mean? Where I was like, it's a problem. And he's like, no, it's not. It's like, well, we're kind of both right. And we're both kind of wrong in the same sense too. It's about your priorities and what you're focused on. And that goes right back to, how do you get your teammates to convince them? You have to convince them that these are problems that you're dealing with. You know what I mean? And again, if it's something that, Kenzo Dev or somebody else on my team may see and go like, yeah, it's not really a problem, then it doesn't matter how, like I can still believe that it is something we need to solve, but that doesn't mean it's effective for me to try and solve it, which is why I don't, right? Like, I'm not streaming how I can use Nix at Hippo right now. I'm streaming how I can use Nix with my own personal project, because the reality of it is it would be very difficult for me to apply it at Hippo, or at least where I work, right? So yeah, like, you gotta, do what Kid Queb said. You gotta gaslight. No, dude, I can't even support that. I'm sorry. I hate gaslighting so much. What's up, Kid Queb? How's it going, buddy? How are you? But yeah, like, you've got to figure out a way to make them care. And until I have a really, 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 really good reason for Hippo to use Nix, they're not going to care. And that's fine. Like, it's okay. It's totally fine. How can I get a job as a fresher web dev? Give me some tips. Build a lot of things. Try, expanding your portfolio. And what I mean by expanding your portfolio, I mean build things that, like, people actually care about. Like, don't just build like a random website for no reason. Like, build a portfolio about building your portfolio. I don't know. Like, figure out creative ways of building something that show people you're trying to just, like, actually, like, and then, like, for example, a lot of people just build front ends, but they don't ever build back ends. It's like, well, you want to actually be a developer, you're probably going to deal with back ends at some point, right? Try building a front end with a back end. Have those two things communicate with each other. Solve a problem in your day-to-day life with code, right? That's what Quirk is. Quirk, if you guys don't know what Quirk is literally built to, to handle all of our stream problems that we have. Yo, Delvoid, what's up, man? How's it going? So yeah, build things that you need and they will become valuable and you'll put more time into it and then you'll learn more. Make cool stuff. Yeah. I'm slowly getting into using Vim. Nice. Very nice. Thank you for the follow, by the way. Do you use Nix for your servers? Because as a dev, my premise always was to replicate production as much as possible, and Nix is not for that. So no, I don't, right? That's another thing that's super, super important to note is I don't. I use Nix only for the development process right now, right? And that's where earlier when, again, we were having that discussion with, chat, I even said, I was like, well, if you want to, you can take Nix and put it in Docker, right? Put it in a container, but let Nix do the building part, which is really what it does. In a Docker container built by Nix, it basically builds the whole operating system and then just shoves it in a container. Versus, doing what Docker kind of does, which is you pull down the operating system and you kind of just add things to it as you go. And so, like, that's a good solution where, again, Nix only really solves the build problem, chat. I'm going to be real. If your problem relates to building and reproducibility, Nix solves it great. It solves it great. But if you don't have that problem, you're not worried about that problem, things like that, it, you know, it's up to you on how much value you're going to get out of it. Again, there was a very, very valid argument of it might not necessarily be that big of a deal at large scale when you've got tons of repositories you're building and you're only dealing with like 5 or 6 of these. It kind of doesn't make sense to say, okay, let's rebuild our whole infrastructure on Nix. That's a super valid argument. And again, I will never not agree with that. I super agree with that. However, you know, if it's, again, a specific project or other, basically, if the requirements match what you need, like I said, I purposefully used Nix with LSP containers because I knew I couldn't containerize Neovim in a way to get it to work the way I needed to. So what did I do? I made a flake out of it so I could have that reproducibility for the Neovim and testing and all of that, right? It's really just for testing, right? And development. But it gives me the advantage of what you could also get with Docker, of like pulling an image and rerunning it, right? I'm doing it with Nix, rebuilding it and doing it that way. So is that across my whole organization? No, I still use Docker to deploy everything, you know what I mean? So, but I can't argue that Nix builds things reproducibly better than Docker does. So again, that's why I say, like, if you built your Docker containers with Nix, then you'd probably have way more reproducible builds and, you know, you get the best of both worlds. For my side project, when I was looking for a job, I wrote 2 Node APIs that registered to console to show them it was horribly made and bad, but it got me a few questions on interviews where they saw it was interesting that I tried it. Yeah, absolutely. Well, like, I wrote Symfony. If you guys don't remember Symfony is like a whole cloud-based orchestrator that I was writing in Go. And, you know, one of the things that even where I work now, when I was talking to, you know, when I was getting hired, I was like, yeah, no, I'm interested in distributed systems and all these other things. And then they saw that I like knew what the RAF consensus algorithm was. I knew all of these other things. And they were like, oh, well, you haven't actually built a production ready cloud-based distributed system. Sure. But you know what we're saying. So that's impressive. Right. So, you know, it doesn't mean I am that great yet, but it does mean that I have understandings of things that, you know, some people might not even understand the technical terms of. Docker and Nix solve 2 different problems. Mixing both is cool and complementary. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you definitely can mix the 2. How much a fresher full stack web dev would make according to you? Money wise, I don't know, dude. Money is so up in the air. We all set our own values and stuff. Like, it's really hard for me to say how much you would get for doing a fresh web dev job. The best answer I can give you simply is like, do your research, ask people in your area, you know what I mean? Stuff like that, I would say, is probably a good idea, yeah. Isn't that a PHP framework? Not the one I wrote. Mine was SYMPHONY, like how you actually spell it. Hey, I'm new to your stream. I was wondering if you are coding on the Mac behind you, and if yes, what are your average temps you have? Oh, yeah, that's my work laptop. To be honest with you, it sucks. Yeah, it sucks. It's a 2019 laptop, and it sucks. Yeah, I'm not super happy with it. I want a new one, but that's other things. Is what it is, man. It gets hot. It gets hot quick. I don't like keep it. I guess the easiest way I could say it is like it goes from cool to the sun. I don't know. Shiloh, does that work for you? It goes from, you know, cold to, you know, nuclear, like just instantly. If I start running Docker containers, that's the best answer I can give you. Yeah. I put it, so I actually have, so my computer sits like this, and it's like sits in a tray, and it just like blows all this exhaust out from the side. So I honestly don't worry about it because I treat it like a desktop. I don't really love my MacBook. It's an Intel 2000. Yeah, exactly. It's an Intel. Yeah. Okay, cool. So tell you what, I'm going to take a super quick break. We've been going for 2.5 hours straight. I want to say this. Thank you guys. Seriously. You know, here's the thing, and I am going to say this really quickly as well. A lot of people want to shit on Nix. I'm gonna be fair. Like, I get it a lot. I get a lot of people who come in and are like, why should I not? Or basically, the question isn't so much like, why should I? It's like, I'm going to tell you why I should not use Nix. I don't care if you use it or not, okay? I'm very excited about it. I think it's a really cool piece of technology. And if you're interested in it, then I hope, again, this stuff has been informative to you. I am still learning the practicalities of it. And it is still growing as an ecosystem. I think one of the things that I really like about it, and maybe this is just something I haven't explained to you guys enough, I'm at the point in my career where I could impact it based off of my knowledge, right? And there's a lot of people in this sphere right now that are doing that. Like, I literally know multiple maintainers of like big things in Nix, and I had no idea. It's a very small community with a lot of heavy, massive impact that we could all make on it if we wanted to. Like, and so that is really fascinating to me, is there's a low level piece of technology that works really well, the build cycle, the language and stuff like that. Now we have to solve these problems of, cool, we solved reproducibility. Like, how do we, now scale it? How do we do it? Like, this is why I understand that this is not a problem that solves everything. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here because I want to be in on the groundwork of like the next Docker potentially. And I'm just being completely real with you. Like, I see what Nix is doing, and I see basically like what Docker has done, what are these massively impactful things. They were never overnight, but once they get that like growth and they have that enough of a foundation, it's like Rust. It's just like overnight, right? I believe that's going to happen with Nix. So that's a big reason as to why I'm so interested in it. I'm so, you know what I mean? No, we're not arguing about it. I'm just revisiting it because I feel bad, because like, I don't want anybody to ever feel like I'm just dismissing their opinions and or their ideas. Like, I felt bad. Long story short, within the past few weeks, I have very much shed me sacrificing myself and my opinions to make others feel better. And I do that a lot, and I don't really love it. But like, I will sometimes like voice down my opinion just so that I make sure others know that like I'm respecting theirs, but then I won't fully justify my own. And so I think that was kind of what I was doing earlier as well, if I'm being honest, where I was like, yeah, I see what you're saying, but no, like, you need to understand where I'm coming from. So I think that's all I really wanted to get the point across, was just more so like, I'm just very passionate about it. It's a very cool piece of tech. And I think it is something that's going to grow. I think, 2 years from now, Nix could look very different, and it could be very cool. So, with that being said, I'm going to take a break. And I do appreciate you guys, again, being open-minded and interested in all these things, because, we'll figure it out together. I definitely think that, we're going to figure out cool reasons to use Nix. And like I said, if you're, I think the LSP containers thing, super good example, right? I couldn't containerize it. I couldn't use it in other ways, but I wanted that reproducibility and those other things. Nix, gave me that out of the box, which was pretty cool. With about, again, 50 something lines of code, probably smaller than the amount of code I would have written in a Docker file to automate it. So that's pretty cool too, right? All right. Well, if you guys are new to our channel, again, as always, be sure to check out that little blurb right there. A little bit about us. Basically, we are co-hosted, streamed by my good friend Atoda and myself throughout the week. You will catch me Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays anywhere between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. And then I normally stream between that time period till noon, 1 o'clock or so, something like that. Outside of that, you also get to hang out with Atoda. Atoda is my co-host who's brand new to programming. And so if you guys are new to, all this kind of thing, you guys might really enjoy his streams. He's, just getting started with building front ends and back ends and how those things work together, and, learning new processes and taking first steps that, maybe some of us have already taken, or some of us haven't taken yet. So, again, completely different content in some regards, but still programming. So again, we hope to see you guys. Also, we do have our Discord as well as our social media. So if you ever have questions, anything like that, if you ever need help with anything or, whatever, you're more than welcome to join the community. We also have a very growing Nix community in there. So if you are curious about Nix, you want to ask questions about Nix, all that kind of stuff, you are also welcome to, join the community and ask your questions. outside of that, we also do have our YouTube. And like I said, there is our first video on Nix on there. So if you're curious about a lot of what I've already kind of gone over here, I would recommend checking out that video, how to set up Nix Flakes, or any of the other videos we have too. I'm going to run a quick ad as well while I'm on my break. If you guys don't know why we run ads during our breaks, it's basically because we don't like running them any other time. To be fair, if we didn't have to run ads, we wouldn't, but we do. So I am going to run an ad during the break. And I will be right back. Keyboard cam is back. Yeah, it is back. I have to remember I have it, honestly. I keep almost forgetting to put my cell phone not on camera, so you guys just can't see everything I'm typing. But yeah, keyboard cam is back. It is back. Yo, Dagley, thank you for the follow. Shiloh, Josh, all of you guys, seriously, thank you. I am going to take a super quick break, like I said. When I get back, we'll jump into the language here. I'd like to try and get through this really quickly. I probably don't have a lot of time though when I get back though, so we'll see. But yeah, give me a second. Let me take a quick break, and then when I get back, we will hop into the basics of the language of Nix, and we'll wrap up the stream with that. All right, guys, give me a second. Be right back. All right, I think I'm gonna change how the standing thing works because nobody ever lets me sit. I think I'm just gonna have to like set a timer and just sit after an hour. Because every time we get the redemption stuff for standing, I'm not even kidding, almost every time it gets redeemed, and then I just stand the whole stream. Which isn't bad, but I gotta stretch, man. Woo! My leggies. How's the work coming? So far, so good. That sounds like the hiccups. No, if I'm completely honest with you, I just smoked. Thank you, Steffi. I have anxiety. I have really bad anxiety. And so, believe it or not, streaming in front of hundreds of people, could sometimes trigger that. And so, believe it or not, I'm actually doctor prescribed for cannabis. Yeah. So it's basically like my ADHD medication or whatever. Well, not ADHD, but you get the idea. It helps a lot chemically balance me out. And here's the crazy part, chat. 9 times out of 10, and I'm just going to be completely candid with you here. 9 times out of 10 when I'm streaming, I'm also medicated. So that gives you an idea of how I am when I'm medicated. It doesn't affect me the same way. It affects a lot of other people, I should say. That explains so much. Yeah. No, I'm not even kidding. Yeah, it really does help me get through the day, which I am thankful for. I have a very high stress job, a very high stress life as well. I kind of do it to myself, to be honest. But yeah. Do you use a Dvorak? No, I don't. Question, is one persistent connection to a database a good idea across an application, or should I open and close connections each time I want to query insert the data into the database? You really shouldn't be opening and closing connections, in my personal opinion. It depends. It depends on how you like with everything, it always depends. However, in general, it is not a good idea to just create and close tons of connections, because when you go to scale with that, then it becomes very troublesome. You can get away with it in like early stages, but reality wise, yeah, you'd probably want to create a pool or something like that. Yeah. Yo, Drillox, how's it going? Hello. Can somebody explain what we are doing today? So you can do exclamation mark today always. However, we've really just been chatting most of the day, talking about Nix and how I brought our open source project LSP containers to using it. And now we're actually going to jump in for the last, really 15 minutes or so. The language itself. I was thinking too many connections would be an issue for sure. Is there any good advice? Actually, you know what? We probably shouldn't jump into this now. I really do have to get going in the next few minutes. I have a meeting at 12:30 and I have a bunch of other stuff I need to do today. So I probably should just get ready to bounce. But let me at least catch up with chat here. If you guys have any questions, by the way, like seriously, hit me with them. We got like probably like another 15 minutes or so. I'm actually down to just open up the floor and chat for the next 15 minutes if you guys want to ask me anything. I was thinking too many connections would be an issue for sure. Is there any good advice for whatever on where to start creating a pool and Go? It depends on what you're using, what driver you're using in Go, what capabilities it has and stuff like that. I guess, a better way of thinking about it too, Aramis, is just like, if you're just talking about like, having an application that just like creates a persistent connection and that just shares that throughout your whole code base, that's common. That's super common, to be honest with you. And that's fine. Like, it's used often. There's really not much, there's really not much to think about it there, except for just simply you're going to create an open connection at the start of your application and somehow figure out a way of sharing that pointer right throughout the rest of the application. If you want to do like an actual pool, right? Yeah, I don't know. It would really depend on what you're using, I guess. I would try the first one though. I would try the first one. Have you guys built it with a single connection and just seeing where that goes? Just share the file descriptor everywhere in YOLO. Yeah. Have you heard of encore.dev? I have not. What is this? A new day for backend dev. Whoa. This is screaming at me. It is yelling at me, so I guess there's that. Stop spending countless soul-crushing hours writing repetitive glue code, clobbering together cloud services in your backend. Start having fun again with creative programming focused on your business logic. Well, this is Go. Encore is the backend development engine built on the belief of escaping complexity. So whoever this person is, they do drugs. Because they are talking about this, and this is so fanciful. I love it. This is amazing. Holy crap. Dude, this is actually really cool. Look at this website, chat. Whoa. Hold on. Whoa. I just did a Hank Hill. But look at this. This is neat. Look at it. It's like doing this little like swipey things. Yeah, this website really is 10. I like this. This is neat. You got me on presentation. Too bad that don't mean shit. Encore is the back. Okay, what is it? I don't even know what it is. Also, okay, the text is kind of terrible to read. Okay, you're really gonna make me do that. By understanding your code inside out, Encore is purpose-built for creating cloud backend applications and distributed systems. When you build your application with Encore's Go framework, the new creates a detailed understanding of your application. So it's just a framework. Is that what it is? That's true. That's very true. Cloud primitives instead of a no configuration, article, users. Yeah, so this is just it's just a web framework or whatever. Building the model in your mind as you define new services, Encore, analyze your code, build a model. This is your DevOps. Okay, this I don't like. This I don't like. This right here. I can't show it because wait, can you see it? No, you can't. Hold on. This right here. There you go. I'm sorry. I can't agree with this. This lets Encore handle your whole DevOps pipeline, consistently provisioning and configuring your infrastructure. This is terrifying. That is actually terrifying. I don't know how I'd feel about that. Is this for like microservices? Because that's the only way I could see this kind of making sense. If all of these were isolated, right? Like trying to like wire these together could not be good. Microservices. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. I was like, because like basically this thing is promising. So chat, so just so I understand, this thing is promising essentially the whole loop, right? So it'll provision your infrastructure for you in your provider or whatever. It will, automate all of that process for you. It will put your code in and run your, all that shit against it. Yeah, like it just does the whole thing. And the only way I could see this working well is if these were microservices. If these were just small services that had their own small little couplings, right? And like, because like think about this as like a monolith, dude. Like there's no way it would be too difficult. But as small little services, yeah, that's interesting. I'll check it out. Probably won't use it, just to be honest. But you know what? I can never say never, man. There's so many times I never thought I was gonna use Pulumi, and then bam, look at me, I'm using Pulumi now, like all over the place. It's crazy. You never know. Is it just me, or the term DevOps pipeline is a bit flawed in logic, or at least outdated? Yeah, no, I agree. That's why I said I didn't like the sound of it. Yeah, linear app is still better. I love linear. I don't see myself needing a pool. Yeah, I mean, dude, real talk, like just build it simple first, you know? Don't be super worried. I mean, if you feel like you're doing something programming wise that like just, I like to call it like a, and actually I stole this from a coworker, a bad smell. You know, if you're writing something, it's just kind of like a bad smell. You're just like, I don't know, man. Then investigate that and, you know, go as far as you need to. And once you've been like, all right, at least I understand the smell now, right? Is it or is it like, you know, asphalt? There's a very big difference, and they both smell almost identical. Or no, phosphate. Sorry, phosphate. Is it phosphate or is it? You know, equally in their own value, I guess. Do you think in the future the problem of Nix on Windows will solve the same way as Docker was solved for Windows and Mac VMs? I'm happy with WSL, but I have a P. So Agile, I don't know. The problem with Nix is the store and how it works. I think for the majority on Windows, with how Windows works, I don't know. I think the problem with Windows is it's hard to guarantee reproducibility. I think that's the hard part. I'm not sure, but I think that is because Windows just works intrinsically so differently, even with like permissions and stuff like that. Like I don't know if you could have truly immutable folders in Windows. Like I guess you could, but then like, you know what I mean? Like there's some lower primitives with Nix in Windows that make it kind of make you ask some questions, you know? Nix will probably give you your best experience either on Mac or on Linux right now, yeah, unfortunately, or in a VM. What's the story behind you buying your first servers apart from Quark and the recording pipeline? What else do you host on your home lab? Great question. So TLDR, I've always been somebody who really found most of my joy sitting on a computer, doing things on the computer, and I also learned that way. Like I was never good in school for like tests and stuff. Like I learned through experience. And so when I started really working at a web hosting company, I started falling in love with servers in general. And I wanted to get my hands on I didn't even know what I was going to do with it, to be honest with you. I just wanted to get my hands on a server as soon as possible. And so after like a year of working at the web hosting company, I had a friend who basically told me that they were getting rid of a bunch of servers. And when you work at like those type of companies that have like hardware, they'll just give them away. Honestly, just be like, just take it. we don't want it anymore. And they'll do what's called cannibalize them. And so that's what they did. They cannibalized a whole bunch of servers, and I got 2 of them. They lasted about a year, and then they crapped out. And then I was like, oh man. And they were also terrible. Like they couldn't do virtualization or anything like that. And so I was like, well, let me really try for something. And so it was kind of just luck of the draw where I went on eBay and I was like, what is the cheapest but like most powerful server I could like retrofit? And sure enough, I found the 610s, and the 610s, allowed me to like add as much hard drive space and memory for like $400 or something like that. And that was really what got it started. I just kept buying more 610s and R210s. And now we have what we have today. I'm actually making a video on this as well, but we don't run anything production anymore on site. With the past 6 months of like, outages, internet issues, and stuff like that, it kind of made us really realize like Quark needs to be in the cloud 24/7. Some other things need to be in the cloud 24/7. So we have our offsite now. Like we actually have a, EKS cluster on Amazon. But what we run on site is like really day-to-day stuff. Our recording pipeline, that is needed because it, connects to our file shares and like converts videos for us and stuff. We also just need our file shares in general. So we use it for like file share servers and stuff like that. We also have our, our private Kubernetes cluster, and that's really it. There's actually not much running on the home lab anymore, just because a lot of the production stuff got moved to the cloud. And in all seriousness, Atoda and I have been talking about this. There's a solid chance that unless we start making more money through the stream, it makes more sense for us to just have one cluster in the cloud. Right now, essentially, we have two. We have the cluster on-prem, right, that we're paying for with electrical. And then we have the offsite, which is in Amazon, which we pay for, all the time. And it really, if we can get away with it, it would probably make more sense for us to shut down a few of those servers, save money on electrical, and simply, run 1-2 maybe servers for like $50 a month rather than 6 for, 200 or whatever we run right now. So, I think we would keep the home lab going if essentially, like, to be completely candid with all of you, Atoda has brought to the table many times of like, what if we made goals? What if we put something on the screen that made people see like their money's going towards, cloud costs, and that would keep the servers there so we could keep them alive. I don't like that kind of stuff. I don't want to put goals, and like, we're not here for money. You know what I mean? We appreciate the support, and what you guys give us is even more than I think what we're used to, even though it's not much, in the sense of like what I think a lot of our friends make. But it's also because we just don't push it. You know what I mean? We really are thankful for what we get, and we take with what we can. And it is tough because I would love to keep the servers running, but they're just getting costly. You know what I mean? They're getting costly. And it's sitting on the electrical bill as well. Which at this point, when we have something in the cloud, it kind of just makes more sense to have it in the cloud, That's the long answer of the whole standard of how I got to where, that's the whole story, I guess. Like I said, I would love to keep the servers. I really would. But like when we start talking about life and the time I have, like, yeah, kind of makes more sense to let Amazon deal with that, With the price of power shooting sky high in Europe, at least home lab YouTube, yeah, it's power is really tough right now. Power is expensive. It's not cheap. I feel like all home labs will always follow the same path. Mine did as well. Start out small, get super big, then epically scale back when you realize you went overboard. Yeah. I mean, you're definitely not wrong. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like we use, like, remember too, chat. Quirk was running on, like we had like 100 something containers. We just moved to the cloud. So like, we did have some value to it, I think, more than just running a Plex server. You know what I mean? But now that, like, that's the problem, is now that Quirk is gone, it's in the cloud, and you know what I mean? That's where it's, it kind of differentiates it now, where it's like, well, what do we really need? The sound drop off when you stop talking feels a bit sharp. Is it? Oh, okay. I'll look at the VOD and I'll see. I appreciate that, Iris. Thank you though. Are we still talking Nix OS? We were, yeah. We did a little bit of a chat. But no, I think I'm actually about to call it. I have a single R710, 24 gig 20 for me. It's called Wolfgang's channel. Oh, nice. Yeah, Neon, I really like where we are, but like I said, I think it's just gonna make sense for us to scale back and save money. Interview went great, by the way. I tried to chat, and oh, hell yeah. Well, congrats, Nate. That's awesome, dude. Very cool. I'm glad to hear that, my friend. All right, well, guys, I'm going to call it here. I think we're at a good stopping point. We really did just mostly talk today about the changes I made to LSP containers and why I made them. You guys got to see a little bit of Nix again, and kind of like, how you can use it. Again, you don't have to. But if you are interested, I definitely recommend checking out the VOD. We did some pretty cool stuff. When we start Wednesday, we're gonna hop back into the pills stuff. I want to get back into the pills stuff because we have like a whole series of this basically. And the VODs I want the VODs to come out as like a series. And so we've already done the first 3 pills. We're gonna do the chapter 4 next stream. So yeah, be sure to come back for that if you guys are interested in the the Nix learning and the Nix advocacy. I hope you guys are enjoying it. Again, I'm gonna be fair, I am still trying to understand what to use Nix for, how to use it. And I do want to say, you know, I'm not going to bring it to you until I have good, valuable reasons of using it. You know what I mean? And I really do think that at least what I showed you today, you know, not being able to use a container, needing some ability of having reproducibility, right? Like Nix does check these boxes pretty well. So I do think it's going to work well, at least for, what's it called? At least for LSP containers. CM Griffing? Yeah, let's go raid Griffing. We were actually going to play video games with him last night. Let's go raid Griffing. We haven't raided Griffing in a moment. I got to bounce anyways because I got to get into this meeting. But let's go raid Griffing. Let's go say hi to him. Everybody jump in on this raid. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. Again, if you are new to the channel, please be sure to check out that little blurb right there. It is a co-hosted stream by myself, BG, as well as my good friend Atoda. Basically, you hang out during the week with me, doing DevOps, all of this kind of stuff. We talk about, you know, basically what you got to see today. And then on the weekends, you get to hang out with Atoda, who is brand new to programming. He is learning all of these new concepts for the very first time. So again, different perspectives and a bit of a different experience. So hope to get to see you guys during any of those streams again, whether it's mine or for Atoda's. If you are new to our community, also be sure to check out our Discord. We have a fantastic place full of wonderful people who can help you. We also have a growing Nix community, so especially if you're interested in Nix and things like that. But yeah, outside of that, also be sure to check out our YouTube. It's brand new. I keep saying it's brand new because we've only got 3 videos on there, but the 3 videos on there are pretty good. So I do recommend you checking them out. One of them is about Nix. Also be sure to check out the second link, which is our archives. And that right now is a really helpful source just because it's got all of our VODs. If you ever feel like you've missed anything, be sure to check that out too. Outside of that, we got some social media. Be sure to check us out on the Twitters, where I am starting to slowly get more comfortable. I know Nate and some others are much better than I am, but, you know, I'm getting my feet wet. So thank you guys again so much for hanging out. Enjoy the raid to Chris's stream. Have a great rest of your evening. I will see you Wednesday for more Alta 4 streams. Have a good one, guys.